bad time because last week.
Yeah.
Hey, Danny, Baltimore just traded down to Buffalo at 22, so for a third and a fifth. So you're kind of getting the idea that Seattle would probably get a third and a sixth for trading down, maybe a third and a fifth for Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Food gone. Welcome to the Seahawks draft coverage here, 710 ESPN Seattle. You also can watch us on the live stream, 710sports.com, as well as Seahawks.com. We're, 2 picks away from the Seahawks actually being on the clock, and after there were only a couple trades in the first dozen or so picks, we've all of a sudden had a flurry. You've had teams moving up. The Oakland Raiders just selected Colton Miller, a tackle. The Buffalo Bills then traded up to number 16, which is where they're currently on the clock, and we're about to hear the announcement from Roger Goodell, who will be letting us know that Tremaine Edwards, outside linebacker from Virginia Tech, is going to be the number 16th overall selection.
Yeah, going to the Bills. John, I'm trying to remember if they're a 3-4, 4-3 team.
4-3.
Buffalo Bills, 4-3.
4-3.
Yeah, so outside linebacker type, and so interesting. Now, John,
and Edwards, by the way, was considered to be a top 10 pick.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so guy out of Virginia Tech. You said earlier, okay, this trade that happened here went for what did they get? So
a third round pick, the 65th pick in the draft, and the 5th pick, a 154 in the draft.
Just to kind of get an idea of what the Seahawks, if they trade down, are going to get.
Because, like, for example, in the trade with Oakland 5 spots down, so that Arizona could get Josh Rosen, it was a third and a fifth. And in this case, it was a third and a fifth. So you kind of get the idea that the value, and again, Atlanta would be one of the teams they could possibly trade with. It's probably going to be a third and a fifth, maybe a third and a sixth.
See there, the first trade that we saw happen was Tampa Bay sliding back from 7 to 12, and that was a couple second-round picks.
2 seconds, correct.
Then the next trade that we saw sliding back was Oakland, which slid from 10 to 15, and they got what was a third and a sixth
and a fifth,
third and a fifth-round pick.
And, of course, the most unusual one was Green Bay, with New Orleans going all the way down from 27 to 14. Green Bay had to throw in a fifth-round pick, but they get a number 1 pick from New Orleans next year.
So they're set, and New Orleans is going to be in a tough spot, is what we're saying.
Yeah,
right?
Next year, yeah.
So the Seahawks are 1 pick away. The Chargers are on the clock right now with just over 6 minutes to go. So I assume the next trade we're going to see is with Seattle.
Yeah, with Seattle,
and
possibly
if they don't,
Atlanta.
And if they don't make a trade, it'll be the biggest stunner of the entire first round.
Harold Landry, the defensive end, is going to probably be there unless the Chargers take him.
Is he a game changer? Is he worth not having a pick in the second, third rounds?
I think not. I'm kind of with you. I think they need more picks. But also, if you do take Harold Lewis, as Danny and I agree, it enhances an Earl Thomas trade.
Which is the only other avenue. I mean,
yeah,
we've been
then
talking
you get
about
a second and something else.
All the whole bottom line to this conversation has been their ability to acquire more picks.
That's correct.
It's because they're very light on them. And you've got 2 options of trading the first rounder, trading out of the first round or down to wherever you go, or trading Earl Thomas.
There was a report from Schefter, and John's been saying this all afternoon, that watch out for Atlanta. Look for Atlanta to want to move up. The other team looking to move up is the Detroit Lions. They're at 20.
Who do they think?
Detroit's trying to move back.
Or they're trying to move back.
Yeah.
Who do they think the Falcons are moving up to get?
They need defensive tackles.
Okay.
Don Terry Poe left. I mean, they're down 2 defensive tackles, and 2 defensive tackles just went at 13 and 14. With 2 defensive tackles with Vita Vea going at 12 to Tampa Bay, and Devon Payne going to Washington at 13.
Mm-hmm.
Good for Vita Vea, man, and that's the thing is he started to look at him during the middle of the year and go, man, this guy's really something else, and turn himself into the top half of the first round. So good deal for University of Washington. You look at the defensive talent that's come out of there over the last few years, and I guess we include Marcus Peters in there as well.
Yeah,
who got kicked off the team, but
he's a knucklehead, but he's a heck of a player.
Yeah, so we've gotten the University of Washington's doing a good job with their recruiting.
When you're able to see what they've produced, you see the first-round pick, Marcus Peters, but you also see Shaq Thompson, a guy that was a great player for them there. Danny Shelton,
Right.
who had been a top 10 pick last year. You had Buda Baker. You also had other Sidney Jones, who was a cornerback who was able to be drafted highly even after suffering an Achilles injury.
What are the needs of the Chargers here, John? What do you think they're looking at?
Well, I mean, they definitely need linemen. That's been a big problem for them for the longest time, because they've lost some in free agency, and they're just not very good on the offensive line. They drafted 2 last year, so that is going to be one of the needs that they have. Then, they also have to look very solidly to see, what they can get at, defensive line, because, again, that's another need for them. Some people think that this might be the year they start to look at a quarterback to replace Phillip Rivers, but, I can't see Lamar Jackson replacing Phillip Rivers, so they're not taking a quarterback. So wide receiver also seems to be in the mix for them, too.
So they've got a bunch of needs, they've got to figure out how to get the fan base excited, because they had a hard time filling a soccer stadium last year that held, 27,000?
Yeah,
27,005,
Their capacity was less than half of the next smallest stadium. You've overall, we've had 4 quarterbacks chosen in the top 10.
That's correct.
The Arizona Cardinals trading up to get Josh Rosen, the 4th of those quarterbacks, number 10 overall. We've had 1 running back chosen, Saquon Barkley.
Right.
No wide receivers chosen. And then a total of 3 different offensive linemen that we've seen taken, a guard, and then 2 tackles. So we've seen a lot of defense taken early in this draft.
It's interesting. When we were talking with Mike Mayock, and John, you back this up, I'm sure, too, that it's pretty rare that you see a first-round receiver come in and have an immediate impact on their team.
It depends on the year, though. Because, for example, you go to 2014, probably the greatest wide receiver draft ever. 9 number 1 receivers came out of that draft, and many of them were all productive in the first year. Since then, that really hasn't happened.
It's dropped off there.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing you're seeing, Danny, you mentioned only 1 running back, but you can get running backs. Practically pick them off of trees.
That's what the economists say.
In the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. That's right. Yeah.
The good old economist.
Danny's economist buddy. But
So-
no, I think
In other words, if you're looking for good stories on the draft, don't read Pro Football Weekly or don't read Sports Illustrated. Read the Wall Street Journal.
go to the Journal.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Actually, you find an
Barons.
economist who has a nom de plume.
By the way, the Charger pick is in, and the Seahawks are on the clock. Derwin James, the safety.
Well, let's send it out to the podium and hear from Roger Goodell. All right, there you go. Derwin James going to the San Diego Chargers. So the Seattle Seahawks officially on the clock now. And running back is interesting. As you said, Dave, you can pick them off of trees. There's a whole bunch of them. But there are a lot of running backs, I think, or at least a handful, I would think, some people thought would be gone by now. I wonder if that would be a temptation at all, or do you think they have so much belief in Chris Carson, who played 4 games and had 1 good game against the San Francisco 49ers, that they, like the fans, believe, we got our guy. We don't need to worry about this.
I don't think they're sold 100%. I think they believe that Chris Carson has a chance. I don't think that they're feeling that, hey, that position's taken care of. If the past 3 years have taught them anything, it's that you've got to have multiple answers and multiple options at that position until you find someone that's able to demonstrate the consistency that Marshawn Lynch was. Because, look, that's been a huge issue for this team. Their quarterback led the team in rushing last season and scored 3 of the 4 rushing touchdowns. And their best running back was Chris Carson, who was injured in the 4th game, 5th game, or 2nd month of the season. Your most talented running back is C.J. Prosise, who's now missed 21 of the 32 regular season games he could play in. And your most effective running back overall was Mike Davis, who, look, he was somebody you picked up on a waiver claim from the San Francisco 49ers.
Who was on your practice
and
squad.
got very little interest as an unrestricted free agent this offseason.
According to Ian Rappaport, the Seahawks are closing in on a trade with the Green Bay Packers.
Surprise.
Okay,
That's according
so the
to, again, we
Packers
don't
sit
know
at
if it's
27
true, but
currently.
yeah.
So that would mean they're sliding back. Do you think Green Bay gave him the first-round pick from the New Orleans
I don't think
Saints?
that first-round pick came in there.
That would be really nice if they gave it to him. Hey, you know what? We've kind of found this first-round pick hanging around in our pocket. You guys have much interest in it?
Do you remember how many times they traded back last year?
3.
Was it 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just felt like, all right, they're on the clock again.
Yeah.
Oh, they're trading again. Okay, they're on the clock. Oh, they're trading again. It felt like it was just ongoing. But, yep, Seahawks have now officially traded their pick to the Green Bay Packers. So there you go.
We'll be there. The Packers now going to make their selection.
Don't you get the feeling this? I mean, they now will take Harold Landry. The defensive,
Packers?
Yeah, Packers take Harold Landry.
He'd be the defensive end from Boston College. Watching to see what Seattle will get for this. I would imagine that they're going to net a third-round pick.
Yeah, probably third and a 5. I mean, that's what the going rate's going to be. Maybe it's a 3rd and 5, and maybe the 7 being thrown in because you are talking 9, 10 spots.
They did move back. They'll move back to 27 overall, which will be there. I don't know if there's any of us are surprised at this.
No.
I mean, we've all kind of expected and waited for it. They haven't made their own pick in the first round since 2011 with James Carpenter, who is the tackle there from Alabama. So this is
They haven't used their pick in the
they
first
haven't
round?
used their own first-round pick.
Oh, without trading back, you mean?
Correct.
Because Fetty is a first-round pick.
By
Fetty,
the
but
way,
they
it's going to be a
slid back.
3rd and a 6th.
A 3rd and a
6th, yeah. That's a good trade.
Okay. I can live with that.
Yeah, because again, it's like when you're talking about now 16 or so, that's a 3rd and a 5, and so it kind of drops down a little bit. But again, the key is getting the net 2.
Right.
Because like they did last year, they were able to go from 7 picks to 11 picks, and of course, get 3 defensive players along 3 defensive backs along with Chris Carson.
Okay. So they've accumulated 2 more picks. You still have a first-round pick.
That gives them 10.
Currently sitting at 27.
I think it'll be interesting to see how many teams try to trade back if they also look at this first round the way that John Schneider does. That they just didn't think that there was, a full 32 first-round picks. So
well,
if
as
you see
opposed to
other
the 49ers and John Lynch with 30.
Yeah, I thought there was 30, but yeah. So how they value that, it would have been a huge shock if they'd have taken somebody right there. And
Absolutely.
If they had, I'm sure that we would be hearing from John Schneider about just what a phenomenal player he was. Just because I think with the first round, they value that so much that better be like a Hall of Fame type of player almost, and they don't feel like that's there for them.
Even if they had a 2nd and 3rd round pick coming in, I would have been surprised if they used 18. It's just been their nature to trade back. It's what you were pointing out, how often they actually used or moved up for players. I mean, first round is just not where they've made hay. And they love, as you like to say, as many bites at the apple as they can possibly get. So even if they had a 2nd and 3rd round, there still would have been, at least from my perspective, some element of surprise that, wow, they actually used their pick at 18.
Their willingness to slide back, and you've seen it. They haven't used their own first round. They had 3 first-round picks the first 2 years John Schneider was the general manager. They had 6 and 14 in 2010. They had number 25 overall in 2011. They used those. Since then, they've traded back every single time when they've had a first round.
There's been 19 draft day trades by John Schneider, and 16 of them have been trade backs. By the way, more details on this trade. Seattle did have to throw in a 7th round pick, the 248th pick in the draft, to get this trade done. So it's a net gain of 1. So they're at 9 picks right now. They get the 3rd round pick, which is 76, and then the 6th round pick, that's 186.
Okay. All right. So 9 picks currently as we sit. And I'm going to go ahead and
Now, by the way,
guess they'll have more than that.
4 in the fourth round.
Yeah. So you picture them packaging a few of those to
Move up into the
move
second.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and getting back to the running backs, I mean, shoot, they got Chris Carson in the 7th round last year. And then, we saw Rookie of the Year, Kareem Hunt out of Toledo. Is he 3rd round? 3rd or 4th. And same thing with Alvin Kamara, kid down in New Orleans. So they can still get that, too. And I'm with you, Danny, as far as running back goes. I don't think that, even though Chris Carson, I think, is going to be the guy that walks away with the job, I don't think that you can go into the season going, okay, this is our guy, we're set at running back. So, and there's still a chance that C.J. Prosise makes a comeback. Remember when they drafted him a couple years ago, Danny, you and I were sitting in there in the other room and looking at film on him, and Moyer and I were just like blown away by his acceleration, and we saw that from him, but he's just one of those guys that I worry about because you don't get healthier suddenly. That's just not the way it works.
You don't become more durable?
No, I don't think so. And he's had some bad luck. So maybe his luck changes. Maybe that's what it is. But, last year that ankle injury, that was kind of weird. So
he had the weird injury where with the
broken scapula.
Scapular. That
See,
was
and
it,
that to me that's bad luck.
Yeah.
Because I've never even heard of that. A guy getting his back broken. So, that's maybe you could chalk it up to that.
Packers, by the way, took Jair Alexander, the cornerback.
Well,
they did not go for the pass rusher.
Let's hear it from the words of the commissioner, Roger Goodell. So they must have felt like somebody in front of them was going to take him off the board, and thus they moved up and traded with Seattle. In case you're just tuning in, the Packers made the pick where Seattle was set to pick at 18. And they now moved down to 27 in the first round, and they pick up a third-round pick, a sixth-round pick, and the Seahawks give up a seventh-round pick.
Be
Do I
there.
have that right?
That's correct.
If Seattle were to slide down again, if they slide out of the first round entirely, they could probably expect to pick up another third-round choice.
I would think so, yeah.
So then you would end up with essentially taking
Probably a third and a seventh.
a first-round pick and turning it into a second and two-thirds, where you're having 3 picks in the first 100 instead of just 1.
Wait, say that again.
If Seattle is to trade back again,
Okay.
and they trade out of the first round entirely,
Okay.
I think they'd end up picking up a team's second-round pick,
Okay,
and then
okay.
probably also a third-round pick in addition to that.
So a second and two-thirds.
So you would end up with 3 picks out of the first 100, as opposed to just 1 pick in the first 100 as number 18 overall.
I like it. I like it.
Isn't it weird to root for trading down? Because I feel the same way about it.
But also,
years
let's go back
previous,
to
I
one of the
haven't.
reasons by going to your point, because I know you've really advocated this, getting more picks, and now they have. This now minimizes an Earl Thomas thing. Now we'll find out more because Dallas is on the clock, and that'll be the one team if there's going to be any kind of trade for Earl Thomas. But now that they did not stay there at 18 and they have picked up a value, have gotten into the third round, and have another chance to trade, maybe get another third-round pick, I think that starts to bring down that Earl Thomas possibility.
Yeah, I'll be glad when Dallas passes on here because I don't want Earl Thomas traded. But, you're right. Being able to fill that in, that does make it way less likely that happens. And, I just don't think once the price kind of dropped on Earl Thomas that it was not a reality any longer. Nobody was going to let him go for anything other than a first round.
Do you have any fear that he's going to be, if he doesn't get, he comes back to Seattle, he doesn't get his extension that he wants? We heard him say at the Pro Bowl, I don't see myself, I know what his rep said, and I know what John said about it, but we heard the words right from Earl's mouth saying, I don't see myself playing if I don't have a deal.
Well, he's posturing. I mean, that's just business. And, Earl, I don't have any doubts that, if he's signed up, even if he doesn't have a deal, and he has a contract for next year, which he does, what does it pay him, $8 million, $9 million?
8.5? Is it 8.5?
Yeah, and look, he's going to play. You're going to get everything that he has. He's not that kind of a player.
Well, at that point, he's playing for a contract. If he's on the field, he's proving that whether it's the Seahawks or anybody else,
right?
Here's why I should be getting whatever he thinks.
And then the Seahawks can always franchise tag him, right? The next year, right? If you go the next year, have him play out this contract, then you can do that with him. But I just don't think that there's any problem with Earl's. I don't think there's going to be holdout. I don't think that there's going to be any kind of an attitude problem. He's one of those guys that just he loves the game, and you're going to get his best if he's signed up to play for you.
I wondered last week, hearing John Schneider outside the benefit for Ben's fund, when he said they hadn't heard from the agents, he hadn't been told that he would hold out. I initially, that's great news. If that's true, and if Earl doesn't intend to hold out, that's awesome. And to me, it changes sort of the math that you use on whether or not you make a deal, and also whether or not you would make an extension. I think it's an ideal situation for Seattle.
You sound skeptical.
There's a part of me that thinks that that's also exactly what you would say or want to say if you were in a position where you don't want people to think that you're being forced into it. If Earl's stance is, I'm not playing unless I get a new contract,
right?
If it's that sort of nuclear approach, that makes it tougher for Seattle to make a deal because
they've got no leverage.
Teams are going to think that, hey, we can wait you out. We can hold you out. So I am waiting to see the Dallas pick move off the clock, but I'm also going to be waiting tomorrow when Dallas' second-round pick goes off the clock because, to me, that's when it really expires. If they don't trade him tomorrow, by the time a team like Dallas picks in the second round,
then he's here.
Then I think that he's here, and there's you still face the possibility of a holdout, but Seattle also has, if it gets to that point, Seattle also has options. You can threaten to use the franchise tag on him for next season, which is obviously something he wouldn't want. So,
and if Earl does hold out a training camp, what you're talking about is that gives Delano Hill a chance to have a good chance of the preseason games to show what he has, and then maybe at the end you make a judgment on Earl then. Again, Earl looks like he's going to be on this team.
Right.
He's going to be a big part of this team, particularly with all the young changes in the secondary. But overall, you still say, all right, you still keep options open, and if he's going to hold out, Delano Hill gets a chance to do some things.
How could they use the franchise tag if they've already got him signed for next year?
Well,
You mean the next year?
You're
Correct.
talking the following year.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said next year.
if the player holds out, he can say, I'm not going to show up until after 6 games.
Right.
And I'll be on the roster for the final 10 games.
So it counts as a year of service.
The year's going to toll, and then I'll be a free agent. And all you can do at that point, if you're the Seahawks, is say, if you do that, we'll use the franchise tag on you. And then you're probably looking at another year with the holdout unless there's a trade. That's the option nobody wants.
Right.
Like that's both sides are dug in, there's lines drawn, and you're just going to be in a straight stare down.
I just keep going back to what he said at the Pro Bowl. I'm just hung up on the words from the horse's mouth. Because
What about him following the coach into the locker room in Dallas? How did you feel about that?
I didn't take it as seriously as a lot of people did. He seems to be a guy who just functions on the moment.
That's
You know
why
what I mean?
I didn't care about the Pro
impulsive.
Bowl thing.
He's
either.
impulsive.
I thought the Pro Bowl thing was impulsive too.
The
I
comment?
just think I think it's all, Earl being a little bit nutty, but
That's a good way to phrase it.
yeah, I mean he is. I always say he's crazy in a good way, in the best
Right.
Yeah.
possible way. So, I think that posturing part of it at the Pro Bowl probably just came out of his mouth, like the impulse to go follow the head coach
Jason
of the
Garrett into
Dallas
the locker room.
Cowboys. Coach there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would assume every fan wants to see him back as long as he wants to be here. I think that's the only fear is people feel like because of the Dallas thing, he doesn't want to be here. He wants to be in Dallas. He's not going to play with this contract, with this level of money, so we got to get rid of him. I think that's the inspiration, I feel like, for a lot of the fans, kind of take the side of, hey, you got to move him. But if he wants to be here, how do you not want Earl Thomas back?
You absolutely do.
Right? I mean, it seems like there was just a lot of momentum behind trade him. You traded everybody else, so you might as well trade him. I'm just not there with him. And maybe he gets hurt this year. I mean, anything could happen. But he's a proven commodity in this league. You've got an elite level talent back there who's 29 years old. He's not old yet. He's not broken down yet. He hasn't lost a step yet. I thought he had a good year last year. I just don't have the motivation to move the guy unless the situation behind the scenes is untenable.
I thought he came back stronger from that broken leg. He looked faster, and he's still got it. So to me, you keep that guy. I can't imagine him going to another team because I think he's going to play another 6-7 years. And, playing with some other team and being affiliated with them, it just would be so strange. I feel like his name should be in the Ring of Honor at the stadium when it's all said and done, 10, 15 years from now.
By the way, Dallas is not taking a wide receiver. Apparently, as we look on the clock right now in the war room, Rod Marinelli is on the phone talking to a defensive player.
All right. Well, their pick is in, and as soon as
They need receivers, John.
They do.
Got Des Bryant, and they got a good young quarterback there. So this is kind of interesting.
so you think they're going defense here?
Defense, yeah.
Okay.
Because Rod Marinelli is a defensive coordinator. He's on the phone talking to the person they just selected. So where most people thought they were going to take DJ Moore, the wide receiver,
Right.
my guess would be this may not be a free safety.
So that's interesting. We've got two defensive ends that have been taken so far, Marcus Davenport, Bradley Chubb.
Let's send it up to the podium right now. Hear what Roger Goodell has to say. There you go.
Watch him at the
defense, John.
combine.
Like you said,
Defense,
linebacker.
Yeah, linebacker type.
They lost Anthony Hitchens in free agency, and they really wanted to keep him. And so now that did create an opening for a linebacker.
Where'd Hitchens go?
He went to
Trying remember.
Indianapolis.
He's a headache dispenser, that kid. Man, he was good.
He's handing out headaches.
I liked him.
By the way, there was another trade, but this one not involving first-round picks. The Pittsburgh Steelers traded Martavius Bryant to the Oakland Raiders for a third-round pick, the 75th pick in the draft.
Really?
Vander Esch, interesting player in Boise. I don't know if he has any kind of outside pass rushing skill. Kind of watched him move through. It's kind of deceiving because he's like 6'4", I think. But he's one of those guys like KJ Wright that covers lots of ground. So kind of an interesting player. I don't know that people had. I didn't see him in any mock drafts going in the first round.
Oh, no.
I didn't either.
No, in fact, I know that Buffalo was considering him at 12 if they stayed there. No, he's a pretty prized pick.
Yeah, well, it depends on the mock draft you look at.
Well, there he goes. He's part of what's happening in Dallas now. The Detroit Lions are on the clock. In case you missed it, the Seahawks have traded back to number 27 in the first round. We'll see if we see them make a pick there or move that one as well. We've got John Clayton, Danny O'Neill, and Dave Wyman here. We are live at the VMAC. It is the Seahawks Draft Lounge. We're going to come back with Detroit's pick up right here on 710 ESPN Seattle. I thought it was going to be here. I didn't know they were going to shut it down that early.
I can answer that two ways. I think in the last couple of days, it just seems like this Baker Mayfield as the number one overall just kind of surfaced. And I think what's happened is John Dorsey said he was going to keep it under cloak and dagger. And
Hey, am I okay kind of tipping off these are what they're taking?
And I think around that time, I'm not saying it was known.
That's good.
I'm on air now, so you can say whatever you want.
We don't want to save the pick until we throw it to Goodell.
You can say it looks like they're leaning this
No,
way,
I like how John's doing it.
and then go to the actual pick itself. Yeah, I think they're doing, or tease it like I think they're going to take a defensive player, like that.
And I think they did. Because they had gone.
I guess that's the fun part because the two of us have done it for networks.
What's that?
That's kind of the fun part because the two of us have done it for networks.
Oh. Yeah.
So it's like we know how to roll with it.
They got small.
Are you surprised by that Martavis Bryant?
But for a third-round pick, that's good value. So not.
He's got some talent, but he was a malcontent with them last year.
How does he go for a third-round pick, and nobody will give up more than a second for Earl Thomas? Isn't that wild?
They take it.
Boy, it looks like Herbstreit got some sun. Look at those raccoon eyes. Good. Look at that. The eyes are all white. Is that Herbstreit?
I want to go headbutt and have beers with my lineman, and you could be a good leader that way. And I think he was a good leader at Oklahoma. Hell, he led the team all the way to the playoffs this last year. But he also was.
Yeah. I like that. Packer looks a little red, too. Yeah. So many people are in the building. Welcome back, everybody. It is the Seahawks Draft Lounge live from the VMAC. Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, Dave Wyman with you. The Detroit Lions have made their pick. We'll send you out there as soon as Roger Goodell steps up to the podium. In case you missed it, the Seahawks, who had the 18th overall pick, make a trade with the Green Bay Packers, and the Packers give up. Recount for me here, John.
Okay, what the we're talking about the
Packers Seahawks trade. For those that
Seahawks
just
trade.
tuned in.
So the Seahawks ended up getting a third-round pick, the 76th pick in the draft, a sixth-round pick, number 186, and to make this all work, they had to throw in Seahawks to Green Bay, the seventh-round pick, which was 248.
And they are now picking number 27. They'll pick
That's
27th in the first round if they hang on to it. Any thought that they're going to keep that pick?
I don't expect them
Don't
to.
expect it. No.
I think they're sliding out of the first round entirely.
I agree, and I hope they do.
They can trade it to San Francisco.
Danny thinks it's
San
weird that
Francisco
we're
thinks
rooting for
there's
trading
30
back.
My favorite thing here is how excited Bob is for them to trade back, where he's like, I don't care who they could get with that pick. They need more players. They need some more guys, Dave.
They don't have the picks, and there's just been more attrition this year than any year previous. It's every other year I was looking forward to a potential first-round pick. Like, oh, this so-and-so is here. Well, let's send it out to the podium right now and
Watch
get
it
Detroit's
to be a big
pick.
ugly.
But he is an anticipatory thrower. He has accuracy at all levels, including deep ball. He's the best in the class.
There you go, big ugly, John. Going with the big ugly.
Going to the big ugly, yeah. Kind of a curious move because, the Travis Swanson going free agency to the Jets and, taking an offensive lineman, particularly when you now look at Bob Quinn, the general manager. I mean, he's been loading up on offensive line draft choices. In his first draft, he ended up taking 3, including, Joe Dahl from Washington State. And, they still haven't had the good luck of getting that line right. And so as opposed to taking the pass rusher, Harold Landry, who everybody thought if he was available at 20 and would have been a Seahawk consideration at 18, now they come back and they take a center. Very interesting.
This is the fourth offensive lineman we've seen go. It would be their
Yep.
2 tackles,
Yep.
a guard who is Quentin Nelson was the first lineman to be chosen. He went in the top 10, and now Ragnar.
Then, of course, that Tom Cable recommendation to the Raiders to take Colton Miller, the tackle at number 15.
Yeah.
Tom Cable taking that choice.
Ragnar comes from Arkansas with Brett Bielema, and Brett Bielema there's a lot of discussion about how tough it is to find guys that develop offensive linemen in college now. Bielema's a guy that likes to run the ball, and he's someone that I know from his background at Wisconsin. That was one of the things, the reason the Seahawks, I know the pick didn't work out, but John Moffitt was that comes from an offense that really does want to run the ball as much as anything.
Yeah, and that's where I almost think it would be weird if Cable was the guy that was recommending an offensive lineman. Just he doesn't see the value of guys coming out of college because they don't get in 3-point stances and they don't drive guys off the ball and stuff. But if he he obviously found somebody that he really likes that does. There are some teams that do that. Of the how many other 127 Division I schools or something, there's probably 10 or 12 that do play old school football. So yeah, you can find them out there. But you're right about Bielema. You notice that. They like running the ball down there, and
he does. And at least the center. I mean, everybody puts their hand on the ground in that offense. Unfortunately, that's probably going to change now that Bielema lost his job.
I always had a hard time with that philosophy, though. When Cable would talk about that, it was almost just as good to take a defensive tackle, defensive lineman, tight end, what have you, and convert them into offensive linemen, and somehow that's the same starting point versus a guy, even if he's playing in a spread offense at the college level, he still is protecting the passer. He still is blocking on some level. He still is, having people come at him and trying to keep them off of his quarterback. There's that familiarity that you don't have with those other positions,
right.
and saying that's the same starting point to me never lined up.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that.
There's timing. There's all kinds of like a sense for, how long do you need to block a guy for? I mean, those are things that you saw guys struggle with that, like a guy like George Fant, and he's done great, but guy's played basketball his whole life. But, I remember as a player drawing on things that I learned when I was a freshman in high school, so that's.
So there's got to be some
I'm a
value to
little
what
skeptical.
they did at the college level. It may not be the pro style, and they may have to teach them a lot, but to completely discount anything they did at the college level as an offensive lineman because it's a spread offense.
But that's not for every player, right? I mean,
right.
but
that's sort of how he spoke. Like,
Yeah.
we're just
Did
good.
say that,
We're
yep.
we're just as well off to bring in a guy who's never touched anything on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
And he'll be at the same starting point as a guy that played in a spread offense at the college level. It never made sense to me.
What happened with Tom Cable and the success they had in the running game and among the offensive line? Dave, you've said it. It worked until it didn't. It's really strange to me that all of a sudden what had been a really effective run game, they just couldn't run the ball at all. It became so awful. And J.R. Sweezy was a huge success story. Now, that success doesn't outweigh some of the other things, but that was a sixth-round pick that became a starting guard who became a really desired free agent. Unfortunately, they either stopped having those successes or the other guys didn't. And I've heard two different theories people have put forward. One is that the NFL outlawed cut blocking on the backside, that you couldn't cut on the backside anymore. The other one is that defensive tackles got so much more athletic that it became harder for offensive linemen to execute that. I don't think either of those theories sufficiently explains what happened. It's not like all of a sudden you had a bunch of guys that were so much faster than defensive tackles were 5 years ago. The game didn't change, but Seattle stopped being successful.
Yeah, and they were so good at it. I mean, and look, you could say, well, it was Marshawn Lynch, but, as far as the cutback, as far as the cut block on the backside, it's not like there was a bunch of cutback runs, because that's where that would benefit you. And, it just pretty much looked the same. I don't think the talent level changed that much. I mean, we go back and talk about the 2013 team did have like the highest paid offensive line in the NFL at that time, but they were not ass kickers. I'm sorry. They were good, but they weren't great. They weren't, the number one or number two, running game for they were that because of what Tom Cable and the way he coordinated that running game. And like you said, Dan, it was very mystifying. And then like the Alex Collins thing last year, and and same thing with Thomas Rawls. How come all of a sudden he just stopped? It's very strange. I guess I would say I'm glad they made a change there, just because I wouldn't want to wait around and see what was going to happen, what was going to come out of Tom Cable's running game. It's so important that they get that fixed. So important.
Bengals have made their pick, John.
It's going to be Billy Price, the center from because he had some problems with the injuries at the combine, but you knew they had to take an offensive lineman. They lose 2 offensive linemen last year in free agency. It buried them. The surprising thing is most people thought they were going to take a tackle, but of course they did make the trade for Cordy Glenn, so they got a left tackle. Now they get a new center. They're trying to rebuild that offensive line.
There you go. So now the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. Say again?
It's a run on centers.
That's right.
First Ragnow, now Billy Price.
You surprised the running backs haven't been a bigger part of what's happened? We've been hearing about how it was just a running back rich.
I've been talking to this economist who's been telling me about how stupid it is to take a running back in the first 20 picks. So, no, I'm not surprised at all. I think that everybody's
this late in the
wisened
first
up.
round, I thought somebody would go,
No,
okay.
because, again, when you have like 10 or 11 guys that can go in the top 3 rounds, it drags down their value.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen that for a lot of years. In fact, there was like a 2-year period where, again, it was a deep but not great running back draft, and a lot of those guys either didn't get taken in the first, but they got more in the second and third. I mean, like that Christian Michael year. That was an example of that. So, when there's a lot, then all of a sudden it pulls everything down.
By the way, the Darius Geis story I thought was interesting about him he was talking about the questions he was being asked during these interviews, and then the NFL said they investigated and they couldn't find any evidence that these questions were asked. I don't even understand the story because I don't think it benefits him to bring that up if it's not true yet. Why would he lie about it? It seemed it's an odd story, and I'm wondering, does that have any impact on him and his draft stock, if you will?
There was a different story. Tom Pelissero wrote this, and this came out afterward, and it wasn't about that specifically, but it was he asked Darius Geis about some people that had some questions about his maturity. Darius Geis basically said, you can't let your real personality show through. That's what I've learned through this. You can't have as much fun. You have to be more buttoned down. I think that there could be questions about whether or not he was actually asked that question. The NFL's concluded there was no evidence that he was. Some of the interviews were recorded, so there obviously wasn't. He was not asked whether he liked men.
Why would he lie about that, though? How does that help him?
It doesn't help him. And I'm not saying that he did lie.
Right.
But you've seen people that, hey, were you asked any crazy questions? Oh, yeah, man, there was this one team that asked me such and such. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but is it conceivable to me that somebody told he he told a story because he thought it was what the interviewer wanted to hear or would be entertaining, and then all of a sudden it becomes a huge news story, which is NFL team has violated the guidelines of what you can ask, potentially broken a law. Like, you can't ask about sexual orientation as what is a job interview, which is in essence what it was, and then it becomes a huge thing. It's also very possible that he was asked that, and the team's just covering its butt, and nobody wants to say it. But I know that there were questions about his maturity.
John?
Okay, we just had a trade. Tennessee just moved up from 25 to 22, 3 spots. They gave up. They get a 4th-round pick in return, Baltimore, their second trade down. They also had to give up a 6th-round pick. So for 3 spots, Tennessee is now on the clock.
There you go, and their pick is in, so we'll see what the Tennessee Titans come up with. We'll come back with that pick as the Seahawks Draft Lounge continues live from the VMAC. It's John Clayton, it's Danny O'Neill, it's Dave Wyman, and Bob Stelton with you. We'll come back and tell you what the Titans have done coming up on 710 ESPN Seattle.
ESPN Radio is what we're getting the feed from. They took a break during the Bengals kick. That's why I didn't know it. But you can still hear Curtis. He just was texting me. So anyway, the next break is at 47? 45, I'm sorry. Next break is at 45. Okay. And the top of the hour break is at 57. If we're nearing the Seahawks pick,
man's wearing pajamas.
You're thinking 55 or 57 is going to be the time of the pick.
Right, so we're going to stay at the John, when you're teasing what the pick is, it sounds awesome because then we'll go to the game. Like when you're saying, oh, I think it might be a defensive player, and then we get the name from Goodell. That sounds awesome.
Okay, good.
So we'll keep with that. And then
Good, how are you?
so we're at, these are really short.
So 45.
15, 30, 45, and then top of the hour is just 57. But if we're close to 27, we'll just stick.
Got you.
Anybody need anything? Water? Anything?
I'll take another water.
Another water? Okay. Good? Okay.
Did you already eat?
I got it. My dinner's warming up in my little hot plate.
You have it plugged in?
Can you let us know when you're coming back? Just put your hand up so we can
Yep.
Oh, you can't hear?
You can't hear the
Oh, okay.
That's what the technical issue was at the beginning. You guys can, then that's all.
So just give us a little.
The Titans took linebacker Rashad Evans. That shirt is at half-mast.
Dave, would you tell this guy to button up his shirt?
His mother holds 4 degrees from Auburn.
Got his shades.
Rashad Evans goes to Tennessee.
Well, can you just keep your ear on it? These are great.
Harold Landry may be available at time too.
All right, so the Patriots now on the clock, and then it's Carolina at 24. The Ravens are trading with the Titans at 25.
30 seconds.
And Seattle, who made a trade with Green Bay, now sits at 27. We'll wait to see if they actually keep it. I was going to ask you guys this quickly with this question.
Going to get cancer of the nipples.
Their draft success in the first 3 years, you talked about this a lot. 2010 and 2012. Those 3 drafts, you can make an argument, maybe the 3 best drafts in NFL. 28 players.
Reggie McKenzie said Tom Cable played a big part in the Miller selection.
Last 5 drafts.
Here we go.
49 players.
We're good.
Look at 2013 draft, and I get it. A single player remaining from that draft. 2014, they have 1 player remaining from that draft, and that's Justin Britt. 2015, they have 2, that's Clark and Lockett. 16, I think the jury is still out.
So another Alabama player off the board going to the Tennessee Titans. It is the Seahawks Draft Lounge here live from the VMAC. Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, and Dave Wyman with you. Right now, the New England Patriots are on the clock with just about 6 minutes to go. Any surprise with that pick, John?
No, because again, you got Mike Vrabel being a linebacker, former linebacker, getting and trying to get a linebacker. They're making a transition with this defense, and I think you can see that the fact that they wanted to move up 3 picks to try to they targeted him and got that done. So no, they've got to redo some things on the defense to get that thing better.
I was surprised that he did not button up his shirt.
You love his outfit.
No,
Had the
I didn't.
sunglasses hanging from the shirt.
It looked
Better
like
than Ezekiel Elliott's.
that's true. The half shirt. He looked like he was set to come and chill with the Seahawks draft lounge.
He did have the right look, right?
Yeah, if one of you walked in here with your shirt unbuttoned like that and your sunglasses hanging out there, I would make you get out.
You'd say, "You're not welcome in the lounge."
That's right.
Wouldn't you love Danny to be the one to do that, though?
I would put money on Danny.
Yeah.
No,
course he would.
Danny's always in a tie, and he's always very respectably.
Why do you dress up like that?
Compensate for an overall lack of talent.
You think it distracts from your shortcomings?
But
Yeah.
Danny, it's radio.
Yeah, I've been told
Nobody
that.
would see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, John, you know what, though? You don't want to see – you ever see Danny when he's dressed casually?
Odd now.
Ooh, gosh. Put your suit back on. What's the matter with
I don't have that reaction, Danny, but it is jarring to see you like, whoa, you're wearing a baseball hat and a
you?
T-shirt.
Yeah,
It's weird.
yeah. That's what I
It is
do.
weird.
I try to raise the expectations that will be there. Really, what I want to do is put as many pieces of cloth between me and the world as possible.
It's very considerate of you.
Yeah.
Very considerate. All right, the Patriots are on the clock. As we said, this is a team that loves to trade,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
they love
it's
to
funny
trade.
because, Vrabel being a former Patriot, guess who he jumped ahead of to take Rashad Evans? It was New England. But, of course, I don't know if they recognize this, but, of course, New England needs a left tackle.
Right.
Because remember, they've only had 2 left tackles since Tom Brady's been the quarterback, and they ended up losing Nate Solder to the New York Giants. So I'd have to think this has got to be Connor Williams or somebody like that on the offensive line.
You wouldn't see them go after a receiver, would you? Since they
No.
lost Cooks, they lost Amendola. Give
They
another
pick up
weapon for
Cordero
Brady.
Patterson. No, I can't see him doing a wide receiver. Not in a draft like this.
Who do they have as their backup quarterback there now? I'm trying to remember, John. Do you?
They don't have one.
Yeah.
There's not a
Jimmy
Hoyer?
Garoppolo was gone. They traded
Hoyer
away
is there, right?
Jacoby- Oh, yeah, you're right. Did you have Brian Hoyer?
Yeah, they got somebody there.
Hoyer came back after they traded Garoppolo.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see that plan there of how they're going to get, the next.
I
next
think,
guy in
because
there.
remember, they have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. I think one of them could be either Lamar Jackson or it can be, another one of the quarterbacks that is out
Yeah.
there.
How about the kid out of Oklahoma State?
Yeah, that's the one I think they could take.
Mason
Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with him. I like watching him play, but then when Russell Wilson did that little quarterback-to-quarterback interview with him,
Where he asked him to do a celebration and sing a song and do a movie line or something like that?
I didn't see that part.
Yeah, the goods.
Yeah, he's a well put together young guy, a guy who I think that could go under Tom Brady like that. If you're a quarterback and you're a mid rounder and you're probably going to spend a couple of years as a backup,
That seems like the ideal
couldn't
situation,
be a
doesn't
better
it?
place. Yeah, with Tom Brady, So yeah,
You come in with no
expectation.
expectation unless he gets hurt,
Right.
but you figure, all right, I'm going to be able to sit back and learn for a year or 2. I don't know how long Brady intends on playing, but you're learning from the greatest, one of the greatest ever.
I wonder if Brady can put it into words, though, because some players are just great and they don't really know how. And one of the things about Brady is that he sees the field better than everybody. And that's actually from Bill Belichick. He said, look, he can come back and tell you what every player did on a play, which is weird. Like, this guy did that, they ran cover 3, then the guy dropped down, and, it's like he has an imprint of it. And so you can't necessarily teach that. That's something that you just have. And you see a lot of times there are really good players that they're not great coaches, and that's one of the reasons why I think backup quarterbacks do a great, how many, Doug Peterson, who's the guy with the Colts now? Frank Reich.
Frank Reich,
Yeah, I mean, it's just you see a lot of success coaching from backup quarterbacks. They're able to verbalize it better.
Yeah, you see it in other sports too, right? You see stars try to coach like Magic Johnson. It's a
Right.
disaster. Yeah, I think that's a great point. They do have a hard time articulating what comes natural to them. They can't explain it. It's just what I do.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like
there's no
John
method.
Elway, all the great quarterbacks and all the really good players in the NFL. You don't see them going into coaching.
By the way, Danny O'Neill with the economic study of the running backs, apparently it's a big part of this draft because not involving running backs, but Sean Payton was asked about why would you give up a number 1 pick in next year's draft to move up to take Marcus Davenport? And he ended up saying, it appears to be a lot, but shoot, what's our country's national debt?
Interesting.
Economics.
Yeah, that is very much the I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today type of rationale.
Who's that? Wimpy?
Wimpy.
Wimpy.
Wimpy was the one. He even had a song that would be there for it.
Is Wimpy part of Popeye?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
That's what I thought.
I'll say this: the big unanswered question for me about the Patriots is what the relationship between Garoppolo and Brady was really like.
Well, let's send you out and get the latest with the Patriots.
Big ugly.
The commissioner making his way to the podium there in Dallas at AT&T Stadium. Let's go to the podium for the Patriots pick number 24.
All right, there you go. Somebody to protect Tom Brady. And they actually used a pick. They didn't trade out of there.
You said 2 tackles ever for Tom Brady, Matt Light and
Solder.
Solder have been the only 2 guys.
Only 2 that he's had.
Now you got Isaiah Wynn. You like the name, right?
Yeah.
Better
Just
than
Wynn,
having-
baby.
Yeah.
That'd be a Raider name.
And he's listed as a guard. So where do you see them using him?
Tackle. They
Yeah.
need a tackle.
So they'll push him out to left tackle. All right. Well, there you go, Brady. I would assume. Do you think he's got any influence on where they go?
By the way,
a
Adrian
guy with
Waddle right now is their starting left tackle. If you have a guy like Tom Brady at 40 and a guy named Waddle as your left tackle, that probably doesn't jive because you don't want your quarterback to start waddling after a couple hits.
I totally endorse that joke.
You notice I looked right at you.
My
after
name
he
is
said
Danny O'Neill, and I completely support John Clayton's plays on words.
But we always talk about players who have some sort of impact. We've heard Aaron Rodgers sort of complain about moves being made without him being even spoken to about it. You figure if anybody was going to be consulted about a draft pick, and not that he gets to say yes or no on somebody, do you think Tom Brady does? Do you think they bring it to his table and say, we're thinking tackle, we're thinking guard, we're thinking running back, whatever?
Can you imagine how that conversation would be, Bill Belichick? Tom, I don't really say all that much to you, but I was just wondering who you thought would end up taking
Would
here.
you prefer a running back or a tackle?
Tell you what, though, man, Belichick's a different guy when he likes you. I saw on the NFL Network and he was just heaping praise on Mike Mayock and just the NFL in general, talking about what a good job they do and everything. And then, I haven't read that book about him, Education of a Coach. When you talk about other things, and I would be very surprised if he asked Brady that much, because like even Aaron Rodgers, remember in Green Bay when his quarterback coach got let go, he was kind of chapped about that.
Yeah,
Well, they didn't consult me on it.
And he was chapped about Jordy Nelson, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Brady, I don't think that he is. I think he's a different personality than Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is a little bit more demanding. I could see Brady being a little bit more sort of coy about it.
My understanding of the Patriots culture is a lot of it is built. Belichick wants everybody to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like he likes having everybody on edge, and it would surprise me if he wanted to hear what his players
Not
wanted.
all, but Tom.
But Tom that would be there. But man,
he's decidedly different. Everybody else is disposable. He's proven that year in, year out.
But you look at the guys, they traded Deion Branch when he was a Super Bowl MVP and kind of seen as Tom's favorite receiver on the team. Like, I don't feel that they've ever catered to what Tom Brady wants or is more comfortable letting Wes Welker leave to go to Denver. So I've never gotten the sense. And I think that Tom, after this point in time, after 20 years of watching it, should have a pretty good sense that Bill knows what he's doing. The guys that he brings in there, and that if he's replacing somebody with another player, it's because he believes that guy can really thrive on this team.
Well, the one thing with Bill and also with Tom, that's why I don't think Tom was consulted on this, because right now they're having a little bit of a spat because of the trainer he kicked out, and so Tom's staying a little bit away.
They're still at each other over that?
Well, of course not. They're not because Tom's not even showing up. He's not even part of the off-season program. I don't know if he's overseas or wherever he is. I'm sure he's working out hard on the TB12 diet and everything else. But, I would imagine the one thing that with Tom is that he'll get the players from Belichick, and if he doesn't like them, they have to get rid of them. Because, Joey Galloway, because remember, he didn't run the right routes a couple times. Within a couple weeks, he was gone. Because Tom is hard on the wide receivers and tight ends, and if they don't do what he wants, he's going to kick them out of the equation, and then Bill has to get rid of them. So it's kind of a two-way street.
It's funny to see the relationship between quarterbacks and receivers for the veterans. I saw Dan Marino just dog cuss his receivers right out on the field. Oh, my gosh, he would just rip them. And then, I heard Elway talking to him and stuff. And it's kind of a funny little, almost like you're scolding a child when they get back to the to the huddle.
Would anybody ever do that on defense? Like, was there ever a point where, like, would the safety yell at the defensive tackle?
No, not. And there was lots of times where I had a right to yell at a defensive tackle that was olaying everybody, and I'd have 3 guys in my lap. But yeah, typically not. But it's just kind of funny because the quarterbacks they're going to throw the ball to a spot, and if they don't get the right route run, they get upset.
Have you ever heard about the one time Brock yelled at it was Elliott Silvers? He might
No.
not appreciate me saying this.
It's too late now.
Yeah, which makes it even better because Brock got absolutely. This was not the only time this happened.
he use
in
a
his
curse
college
word?
career? No, but he got lit up. I think he got crushed by a Nebraska lineman, and he looked at Elliott Silvers and goes, "You gonna f- him?"
I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
I thought.
So you gonna block him?
I would have been happier had you said he used a curse word, though. That would have made the story that much
Would have
better.
been the rapture would have happened. You don't want to see Brock Heward curse. Like it would
I don't
ruin
know.
it.
We thought it was pretty awesome when Russell Wilson.
That's
cursed
right.
here.
Yeah, it was in the Indianapolis, the Colts
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Come on, it'd be sort of delightful, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, Carolina's on the clock. I think there's a chance that the first wide receiver may be taken in this draft.
You think receiver for the Panthers?
I think so, yeah, because, they've been trying – it's much like Dallas. They had no separation at the receiver position, and so they needed to bring in speed. They probably made a mistake by letting Ted Ginn Jr. go, and so they're trying to get more speed in there, and so they're going to have to go for a speed receiver.
They dealt Benjamin last year, right?
Yep.
Well, let's send it up and see what the Panthers are
See if we can
coming up
catch
with.
this.
There you go. Receiver, John. How did you know?
What's that?
How did you know?
It's just amazing.
It's amazing. There you go. So the Panthers go with DJ Moore out of Maryland. The Baltimore Ravens are on the clock as the Seahawks Draft Lounge continues. The VMAC. It's Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, and Dave Wyman with you. We'll come back, give you what the Baltimore Ravens are going to do with their pick at number 25. Seahawks, by the way, just 2 picks away at number 27. All of that coming your way next, right here on 710 ESPN Seattle.
Yeah, I think so. How about you? How are you feeling?
We are getting closer. Pick number 25. The Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. 4.5 minutes to go. The Seahawks sitting at number 27. In between them would be the Atlanta Falcons. Welcome back, everybody. It is Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, and Dave Wyman with you live here at the VMAX. So the Ravens, who had made a move, now look like they're going to make their pick here. John, any inkling as to which way they're going to lean?
Well, I mean, some people think it may be a wide receiver, even though, again, I kind of question that, mainly because they already have taken 3 receivers in free agency, so it might be a little bit of an overdue, but they probably may be looking for a young wide receiver. Offensive line still could be a consideration for them because they have one hole on the offensive line, so that might be one of the things they might do. I think they're okay at cornerback, but I think O-line or wide receiver.
Ozzie Newsome's last draft,
Yeah.
right? Retiring after this. Played against him when he was in Cleveland, and he's been one of the great executives. Where do you rate him, John, as far as a GM?
I had him probably in the top 3.
Yeah.
Because he's that good. I mean, particularly when you go back, when he put that team together around Trent Dilfer. Of course, it really wasn't around Trent Dilfer, but, I mean, he hit on defensive players every year for like 5-6 years and hit big. I mean, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis. I mean, he was on fire when he put that team together, particularly for the 2000 team that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, their defense was pretty prolific. I mean, Suggs and Canty, and I mean, man.
I'll tell you,
They didn't miss on many.
did
You're
not.
right.
who's done another a good job, and I was having a debate the other day with somebody about this, but John Elway, after losing that Super Bowl in the fashion that they did, and they had the #1 offense by far, within 2 years converted his team to a defensive team. And Peyton Manning's just a shell of himself, and and they took, the reason I bring it up, they took Nick Chubb today, the pass rusher, defensive end. What's he out of Georgia?
Yeah, Bradley Chubb. Nick Chubb's the running back out of Georgia.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and who I like. But so the guy that they took, another good pass rusher, and he did a really good job building that defense. I mean, you can't. And now lately, he's kind of missed a little bit on quarterbacks.
Yeah, struggling with the one position you think he'd excel at,
yeah,
right?
Right. And that's one of those things. Sometimes you're too close to it and you don't see things. But anyway, for him to be able to do such a good job there, and it's 2 ex-players, with Ozzie Newsome and John Elway that have done a pretty good job.
Yeah, and you thought Newsom as a player, right? Really not that good.
I never said that. I believe I saw him in a gold jacket earlier. Speaks for itself.
That's all hype. That's all hype. So the Ravens pick is in. We'll send you up to the podium here in a moment when Roger Goodell steps up there. Then the Falcons will be on the clock, and then right after that, the Seattle Seahawks. So I still expect
Maybe.
Bob rooting for a trade here.
Yes.
Come
yes.
on, they're trading it away.
Trade it away.
Right?
Trade it away.
Do you want him to use it, or you want him to trade it?
Trade it. I think all the good players in the first round have been taken, and some people don't realize it.
Danny.
And that's where No, I'm talking about other GMs, unsuspecting GMs.
You want them to use the pick, Danny?
Yes, because that would mean that they see somebody there that they think is worth it. And to me, like, if they pull the trigger, and it's not even that I've got a specific guy that I want him to choose, other than I don't want him choosing a running back. But I want to see them if they pull
your
the
economist
trigger.
friend really got in your head.
Yeah, completely. It's completely changed the way I see the position and value it. In fact, I'm questioning how important running the ball is at all in football.
You just want them to be a pass first and pass only offense.
It seems to be what matters when it
Of
comes
all the
to
people
teams
that would
improvement.
sway your thoughts that stupidly, an economist.
I'm telling you, man. Yeah, I read it and was thoroughly convinced. No, but seriously, if they come out and say this is the guy that we want here, what it says to me is that we didn't want to slide anymore. That we didn't want to move back anymore. That this is a guy that we had there, and it's worth pulling the trigger on because the incentives for trading back.
Let's send it up to the podium. Get the word from Roger
It's going
Goodell.
to be a defensive player.
Let's go to the podium. The Ravens with the 25th pick. Here's Roger Goodell.
Tight end.
Tight end, yeah.
All right. So there they go. Ozzie Newsome.
First
going
tight end to go
First
off the
tight
board,
end.
right?
Yeah.
I like
Yep.
that. Yeah, old tight end drafts a young tight end in his last
He's a
draft.
ginger.
He is. He looks.
He's also got a man bun.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Well,
we don't care.
Who
It's
doesn't
the
at
Ravens.
this point? You and I.
It's
That's
me.
who.
But it's funny
John.
because if you go back to last year, they had 5 tight ends at least starting the offseason. Then Dennis Pitta had to retire. One player got suspended. A couple guys got injured. The tight end position just fell totally apart. And this isn't considered to be a real good tight end draft. I mean, most people thought at the most there would be 2 tight ends. I mean, right now you have 1 wide receiver, one tight end taken in this draft. It's been a defensive draft.
So people are going to clean up in the second, third, fourth rounds with all the running backs that are left, the wide receivers, the tight end. I mean, there's a ton of skill position players that we'd heard so much about in these mock drafts that are still available out there.
Seen 4 quarterbacks taken, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, now 1 tight end that's there.
Yeah, that hasn't matched what I've seen. So I would think if you've got a handful of picks in the upcoming rounds, you're feeling very good if you're in the market for a skill position.
See how the running backs get disrespected? You know,
Economics.
Yeah, I mean it's true. They don't get paid. Le'Veon Bell, John. I mean, in Pittsburgh, he was
insulted with a $14.5 million franchise tag. How dare they?
Gets what he wants.
How dare they?
Yeah.
Jeez.
But just where they're drafted, and then look, the longevity is not good for a running back. So, I guess you can understand it. But boy, when you have a good running back, it sure is valuable.
Well, we've seen it. Right?
I know.
Up close and personal here. When you even when Marshawn was here, the line was not a strength of this team.
Yeah.
I would argue it was the weakest part of the team. Even at that point, you had better players, but you had Marshawn and you had Russell Wilson running for 849 yards in a season, which makes your running game look that much better.
But it's so good. Like, not only that, you have a punishing running back that it helps the defense. It's demoralizing to the other team when they're getting run over, and it's so valuable that. I don't see why if you like a guy and you're afraid of looking bad by drafting him high. I think I'm just surprised that more aren't coming off the board here.
Yeah,
just because of the value of a good running game and what it means.
I don't think previous misses hang over Seattle's head. I don't think John Schneider's a guy that gets gun shy because a previous pick in a position.
Christian Michael didn't work out.
But that's what I wonder, because they took that pick at a point where they didn't need a running back.
Yeah.
They took it because they knew that there was some uncertainty about Marshawn Lynch. They knew that there was they needed a running game, that was going to be the constant, and they took that, and it just never fired for him. It never fired for him, and that wasn't a question of physical ability at all. It was about the noggin that was screwed onto his shoulders that was there. And I wonder if that's affected the way that they've evaluated it. And then last year, Thomas Rawls was 2 years ago was better, and last year Chris Carson, of feeling that, hey, that's a position that you're better off kind of letting the guy distinguish himself rather than making a bigger bet on him from just what going into the draft.
Well, who was the running back a couple years ago that was the interior designer?
Zach Brooks.
Zach Brooks from Clemson. Yeah. He did not last long at all.
I don't think he was one of the only guys. They didn't even put him on the scout team, I don't believe.
Yeah.
I don't believe he was signed to the practice squad that was there. You also had Alex Collins, who at no point in his 2 years in Seattle did he look like someone who was like, boy, you really got to keep an eye on him. Like his first week of training camp as a rookie, he looked good, and after that he was completely forgettable. He goes and gains darn near 1,000 yards for Baltimore last season.
Is that about their line? Is it about their system?
Yeah.
Nobody was crying when he left here. I didn't see anybody texting in and going, how could you do that? He's going to be.
No.
Nobody felt that way.
Because he looked like their 6th best running back.
Let's send it up to the podium, get the Atlanta Falcons pick. All right, there's another skill position.
How many
off the
Bama
board.
players? Is that 4? You got Deron Payne, you got the linebacker, you got this guy.
Yeah, 4 with Fitzpatrick. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got the linebacker.
A little bit of a surprise because, again, it's like there's 2 defensive tackles that have first-round grades on some teams, and they passed on them and have that need for defensive tackle, and so they take the second wide receiver in this draft, Calvin Ridley.
So there you go. Now the Seattle Seahawks are currently on the clock. We'll see if they use this pick. I just don't see it happening, Danny. I know you want to see him use it. I don't think it's going to happen.
Howard Landry is, if you're looking at a pass rusher, he's probably the best regarded pass rusher that's available right now. He was a guy who was really productive.
Is that the priority in your mind for this team?
Yes, I think their biggest need and the biggest question in my mind is who's going to rush the passer. Frank Clark has been a very effective pass rusher. Deion Jordan is a great comeback story, but he has played
handful of games.
Yeah, one half of the past 3 seasons. You hope Barkevius Mingo shows some of the traits, but that's a guy that hasn't. Look, this is going to be his 3rd team in 3 years.
So you're hoping for what?
He's
Nas
going to
Jones?
Naj Jones, I don't.
Quentin Jefferson.
But he's a D tackle.
Yeah, I don't see Naj Jones being a guy that's going to. I think Jaron Reed is going to be a better pass rusher than Naj Jones is, and even then, I don't think that's going to be. Jaron Reed's never going to be known for the disruption that he causes inside.
You agree with that? Their biggest need is a pass rusher?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had 15 sacks walk out the door. And last year they had Cassius Marsh going into camp, and now you really just got Frank Clark. And somebody was saying, well, I don't know if he's a number one pass rusher, but sometimes when you step up and you're the man, guys will sometimes respond accordingly.
And he's also a guy playing for a contract. He's in the final year of his deal, is he not?
DeMarcus Lawrence did exactly that last year. I mean, kind of took a while to get settled, then finally built up, had a suspension, and then really came back and now is a $17 million player as a franchise player for Dallas.
Frank Clark's that kind of player to me. I mean, from what we've seen from him, some of the most spectacular plays. So, but again, really, like you said, Danny, I mean, the Deion Jordan story is fantastic, but it's kind of like Chris Carson. I mean, he was
for a whole
great,
season?
but can he do it again? I don't think it's going to be a matter of him going back to the life that he had before off the field, because, I think he's solved that problem. And, I'm very proud of him for doing that. He's just done an amazing job. And by the way, he answered a lot of the questions that asked him, I thought was very impressive. But, again, you don't know if he sure has a great physical. I mean, he had a speed rush, and then he had a bull rush. So, I mean, he can pretty much do anything you want. But, again, that's 4 sacks in 5 games they got from him. Then you got Frank Clark, as I mentioned. Maybe he gets double-digit sacks. And then after that, you're relying on, like, Marcus Smith and some of the D tackles.
Or you could bring back Dwight Freeney.
Yeah.
What did he get you 3 sacks in 4 games, right?
But he retired on Monday.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, he signed a contract with the Colts. He officially retired on Monday. By the way, so let's kind of go through this a little bit. It's like options that are there for Seattle. Harold Landry, the pass rusher. Darius Geis, the running back. I mean, there's 2 offensive linemen that would be of consideration. You've got Hernandez, who's a kind of the inside guy, can maybe do a little bit on the outside. That's a consideration. Maurice Hurst, the defensive tackle, which I think probably is not going to be one of the options. Josh Jackson, but again, he doesn't have that arm length that they really like at cornerback. But Will Hernandez is a guard, and then Connor Williams, the tackle.
Josh Jackson is a corner out of Iowa, who I think is an interesting player. But John mentions they've got pretty specific specs for what they look for. Hernandez is a really tough, and I heard Brock talking about him this morning, really tough interior lineman. Got a bit of nastiness to him. He thinks he's flexible enough to play on an NFL offensive line, that he's got enough athleticism to be able to
as a tackle.
No, probably as
guard?
a guard. Yeah, I don't think that he profiles as a tackle, but someone who he can still get out and move well enough. I just come back to the pass rush. Deion Jordan, not only do you have a question just about sort of his consistency, he had a neck thing last year. He had a knee thing going in. The physical durability is a question. You're going to need to find ways. When this team really was firing, they were bringing Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill off in their nickel pass rush. Those were guys that weren't necessarily starters. And you're not going to find that in this draft, but you need to find ways to generate a pass rush, because I think that's, especially if you're looking at the changes that they're going to have in the secondary, you're going to need to have to find ways to slow down opponents' passing games.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just don't know if they feel comfortable with the number of picks they currently have. Do they want to get themselves into the second round? They made a move earlier to move down to 27 with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, listen, if they make a pick here, they've got a strong belief in the guy.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll trust in that. But, again, I'm just looking at the situation they currently sit in with their needs. I would like a few more picks.
The thing is, if somebody fell through the cracks of those, top, if it's 13, 14, 15 guys they think are first-rounders, wouldn't they have taken it with the 18th pick? And now all of a sudden, I would be surprised. So
If they use the pick?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, under 3 minutes to go on the clock, and to this point, we have not heard of a trade yet. So, of the remaining running back, I don't think they're going running back. Is Geis the best? Is he considered the best of the remaining?
I think he's the best fit because he has a little bit of that Marshawn Lynch style. He may not be the best, but again, if you want something like Marshawn had, again, he may not be Marshawn, but he reminds you of him.
Well, Eddie Lacy reminded us of Marshawn, too, and that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So.
Sony Michel, From Georgia. Georgia's got
Yeah.
2 backs with Nick Chubb and
Chubb and-
Sony Michel. Michel's considered the more explosive of the 2. He's been banged up. He's had injuries each of his 4 years there at Georgia.
Do you have an ACL?
Yeah, Seattle hasn't shied away from taking guys
But
who've
you've already
come back
got,
from
you've
those
got
ACLs.
you've got 2 running backs on your roster that are dealing with injuries, or were dealing with C.J. Prosise and, of course, Chris Carson. So do you bring in another injury concern at that same position?
The one thing about Seattle, though, and the Seahawks have looked at it, that they view it as a feather in your cap if you've been able to show that you're able to come back from an injury, with the belief that, hey, you're going to have to play hurt in the NFL. And guys that can come back from an injury, they've already sort of answered that question for you. You don't have to worry about, is this guy going to be ruined if he gets hurt, because so many people do end up getting hurt in the NFL.
Well, it's going to be, their pick is in, so they have not traded it.
They got a pick.
Yeah, they've got a pick, and as soon as Roger Goodell makes his way to the podium, we will send you out there. But they've moved back to number 27 from 18. They made a trade with the Green Bay Packers. The assumption, at least on my part, was they were going to trade the pick at 27, but according to the screen, they've made a pick. We'll see if they stick with it. Always a chance they could trade that pick, whoever it is.
How excited are you right now?
I'm
really
very
excited.
curious. I'm extremely curious, and if they're going to be traditional Seahawks, it'll be a name that we have yet to mention.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be a
Right.
James Carpenter moment where everybody goes, I'm sorry, who's that guy
Exactly.
going to be? So,
Didn't Nick Saban even do that?
Yeah.
Didn't he go like, who? Or Carpenter?
I think it was a face of surprise. I don't. If he didn't know the starting tackle on his team, that would be jarring to me. I know that Nick is a fairly officious sort and doesn't seem to have the most gentle.
And this will be a surprise.
let's send it up to the
A
podium
big
right now.
Surprise.
Yes. A running back.
Yes.
I love it.
Not one that we had mentioned.
No.
You've got
I mean,
Sony Michel there. You've got Chubb there. You've got Geis there. And they go with Rashad Penny.
How about that?
Yeah,
Where was he predicted to go? Anybody?
Some have him in a third. Some have him in a second.
Wow.
But, right, we were just talking about the fact that if they use the pick, it's going to be a name we have yet to mention and that everybody's surprised. So there you go, Rashad Penny.
Didn't he run for like 400 yards in the ball game?
No. Very accomplished. And
in the
again,
game.
remember, this is one of the great running back drafts all time, and certainly the best in more than 10 years.
But where was he in relation to the other ones, as we just talked about? Geis, Chubb, Michelle, all available at this point. Everybody knew Juwan Barkley was going to be the running back, right? Everybody, There was no question there. I didn't hear this guy's name mentioned that often. I mean,
No, but again, I mean,
First-round pick?
No, I mean maybe more second and third, depending on how different teams evaluate it. But again, the running backs in this draft are so good, and so it's like you are getting quality, and that's why they drop, because there's so many options that are available. And so in some years, maybe he might be considered to be a first-round pick. In this year, maybe more of a second and third when you're comparing him against other styles and other guys like that.
First time the Seahawks have used a first-round pick on a running back since 2000, I believe, when they chose one Sean Alexander. That was at a point where they still had Ricky Waters on the team,
Right.
making that selection and bringing Sean in.
what do you think of this pick?
I don't like it for the simple reason that I think that running back is a position that you find guys at, and that using that sort of resource at a point when you're not having as many picks as up high, that you're passing on a chance to pick up another third-round pick by sliding back into the second round for a running back. They obviously must be sold on him. I just think that the running back production has much more to do with the guys in front of him than it does with the guy himself.
This is where we're going to differ right here. Dave and I have had this debate about chicken or the egg. Why is it struggling? Is it the guys up front, or is it the guy running the ball?
I think it's the guy running the ball. I think that the same holes were open in 2013 as 14, 15, 16, 17. So, and to me, you're not as reliant on other players. I mean, yes, you need a little bit of a crack or something like that, but in the passing game, there's a lot of things that a lot of guys have to do their job right in order for a pass to be completed. You got to have good blocking. You got to have the guy. Quarterback's got to read the right. A running back can make his own way, man. And I think I've kind of been on a campaign with this, bring back the importance of the running back. And, last year talking about now whether or not they got the right guy, I don't know. I mean, I did not see him in this like top 5 list, but this is very typical of, I remember leaving here when did Frank Clark get drafted?
Second round.
Second round?
Yes.
Yeah, a couple years ago, and people were in here squawking about, he's a 5th round grade, and so that's what they do, man. They find special talent. I love it. I love that they got a running back.
He was considered to be a top 5 running back in this draft. Okay, let's go into some of the numbers. I mean, he's 5'11", 220 pounds. He ran a 4.47 40 twice at the combine, and actually clocked out a little bit electronically at 4.46. So he was the 3rd fastest running back at the combine. He's got pretty good numbers as far as his vertical, 33.5, 9.8 on the on the broad. He got a 9.8. So he does got explosiveness, and he also has speed, and he has that kind of size that they like at 5'11", 220, kind of lower to the ground.
Who were the 2 running backs that were faster than him? You said he was 3rd fastest at the combine. I think you said
Barkley.
4.4.
Barkley was clearly ahead of him.
Was it Ronald Jones, maybe?
Let's see. There was a 4.38 by Nyham Hines, who, of course, he's been a big name in at running back circles. And then there was a 4.4 by Barkley.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I'm just looking at, like, Mayock, for example, top 5. Saquon Barkley, Darius Geis, Ronald Jones, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
So, he's not one of those guys that a lot of people thought it was going to happen. So I can't wait to hear from Pete and John what they saw in him.
My economist just screamed in pain.
Is that what he did on the internet?
Yeah.
He's not happy with
Quote,
it.
I just screamed in pain. We also have Ben, I feel like John Schneider did not read your article. I legitimately feel that this is your fault.
Well, there you go. In case you just tuned in, the Seahawks did use the pick at number 27. They go with a running back. Rashad Penny is the pick for your Seattle Seahawks. The Steelers pick is in. We'll give you that when we come back. We continue with the Seahawks Draft Lounge live from the VMAC. It's Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, and Dave Wyman with you here live on 710 ESPN Seattle. Sounds like a handsome devil speaking there.
He's a real pro. We know that.
Huh?
He's a real pro. We know that.
There you go. In case you missed it, you're just tuning in. The Seahawks trade back to number 27 in the first round, and they go running back with the pick. Rashad Penny, a running back we had not heard a ton about going into this day, and a lot of the mock drafts. Did not see his name. It is the Seahawks Draft Lounge happening live from the VMAC. Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, and Dave Wyman with you here. Before we get into Rashad Penny and what the Seahawks are doing, by the way, the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock. Their pick is in. We'll let you know what that is. But
yeah,
very
by the way,
cool.
Pittsburgh took Terrell Ed, so that was their pick.
Well, let's talk about the guy who announced the pick.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead, Bob. I know you were getting ready to. Ryan Shazier walked out.
Walked
there.
out.
Looked
No
like
cane. It was a little. I mean, he's not walking normally, but
Right.
he's walking,
Amazing.
which is. I mean, this is a guy who was on the verge of paralyzation for life. I mean, it was looking incredibly dire. And to see him walk out with a little assistance, but no cane, no utensil out there, if you will, or to help him.
What an awesome
very
scene.
cool scene.
Yeah, because
very cool.
I mean, when he got injured on Monday Night Football, it's one of the more disturbing things that we've all seen on a field. And from reaching for his back, and then he had to get carted off. It was horrible. So to watch him walk out on the stage, really awesome, really awesome. So. And, I don't even care about who the draft choice is, just seeing Ryan Shazier able to walk again, really cool.
I don't know how many actually heard him. I think they were just in awe of him
Yeah.
walking out there. It was such an emotional moment. I think the name was probably secondary to a lot of people. Very, very cool scene. I just hate hearing him talk about coming back to play. And maybe that's like Cliff Averill talking about, I just need that mentality to get me through the physical therapy and everything I've got in front of me to come back. I just need to have that in my mind, whether it's reality or not.
I don't see how he comes back to play again, even if he gets back physically. The decision to do that, I think, would be, I'm not seeing that. But anyway, Rashad Penny, pretty amazing pick there, and very Seahawk-like in that just not a guy that you see on everybody else's boards.
Is it as much of a I won't say a reach, but as much outside the box of everybody's thinking as Carpenter was?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Maybe it's right up there. Carpenter became a good player later on, but
Not with the Seahawks.
yeah, I know.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, look, running backs I think can go a little bit. That I think it's easier for them to develop and get out on the field, and we saw it last year with rookies. I mean, look, if they get it, they get it. We saw it with Chris Carson, and there was a couple of things last year that Chris Carson. I just think if he could have kept playing, I mean, there was a play where he could have scored a touchdown, and it ended up being a 7-yard run. It was on a block that Luke Wilson got, and he just read it wrong. But, when you see that, it's easily fixable, and I feel like he's a guy that can contribute right away.
The thing with Rashad Penny and the Seahawks taking him, it's only the fifth time they've used a first-round pick in John and Pete's now 9th draft here. The fact that they pulled the trigger on it, he's 5'11", he's 220. He's a bigger back. He's punishing. His speed was just sub 4.5, so 4.46. But this is a guy that veers more toward the side of the power spectrum as opposed to a quick scat back that's able to be there. They're dedicated to playing the running game. Like that's what this pick symbolizes. That you're going to bring back C.J. Process, you're going to bring back Chris Carson, you're going to bring back Mike Davis, and now you're going to add Rashad Penny to that. The first running back that this franchise has drafted in the first round since 2000.
But I'll give you some numbers here just to kind of compare. Jacksonville took Taven Bryant, the defensive tackle, with the 29th pick. So now there's 3 more picks in the first round: Minnesota, New England, and Philadelphia. Last year in San Diego State, Penny gained 2,248 yards, leading the nation, and had 23 touchdowns. He had 80 broken tackles, which led all college players. So that shows you at 5'11", 220, he has the power to try to run over you or run through you. But here's the other thing He was among the best in college football, flanking out, going out as either a wide receiver or into the slot, and averaged over 11 yards and some targets in that in the times that he did that. So what you can look at as far as the use here, he can come in one of two ways. He could come in as C.J. Procise, taking over for him as the third down back, or he can challenge Chris Carson as the first down, as the main back. And so there's versatility there.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the numbers, as I'm sure John Schneider, Pete Carroll are going to start to try to sell this. Danny's favorite site, Pro Football Focus, had Penny as the second best running back in this draft.
Really?
Yeah. And by the way, they had Barkley number 1.
All right.
Surprising.
Yeah, so, and I think you said the all-purpose yardage was at 700-800, something like that. So, yeah, you saw him on the highlights. They split him out quite a bit, so he's a guy that can do a lot of everything.
All right, we're going to step away for a moment. I believe John Schneider and Pete Carroll, or one of the two, Schneider, Penny. All right, they're going to do a little conference call up there when we come back. So we'll continue with the Seahawks Draft Lounge here, live from the VMAC on 710 ESPN Seattle.
I'm doing really good.
Welcome back. Seahawks Draft Lounge continues here live from the VMAC. Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, and Dave Wyman with you. Let's send it up. Rashad Penny speaking with the media right now.
Rashad, where are you right now?
I'm back at home in Norwalk, California.
How many folks you got there with you?
About 50.
50 happy people, I bet.
Man, unexpected happy people, too. We didn't expect this. It's amazing.
What did you expect? Did you have a kind of a goal on where you thought you might go, or?
You know what? At the end of the day, I'm just excited about being a part of this process and this draft. And to to be honest, it really didn't matter where I go or where I went. I just knew that I was going to come in and work hard and compete, and that's something about me. I'm just a hard worker, and I'm just excited to be in this situation right now. But this is definitely unexpected. But I knew one day I was going to get a call or just any day. So, I mean, I can't embrace it as much as now.
Had you had much contact with the Seahawks during the process at all?
Yeah, most definitely. I've been talking with Mo, the running back coach, and I remember at the combine, I was really engaged in what they were talking about, and I was all talk with him all ball. So I mean, just a few days ago, I was just on the phone with the running back coach, and I was able to talk to him. So it was a great conversation.
You said you were surprised. Did you think you were going to go later, or what's the surprise stem from?
I mean, to be honest, I'm just one of them guys that I came from a realistic program with a realistic head coach, and he always said I was going to be the best player on the field. But then looking at all the mocks and projections, but then as the process started going on and on, I started realizing that the mocks and predictions don't mean anything. So now I see it's real. It don't matter what the projections say. It's just unexpected. I mean, I'm so blessed right now.
Rashad, listening with your family, you guys have two brothers playing running back in the NFL now.
Yes, sir. I got my oldest brother. I only got one. His name is Rashad Penny, and he plays for Arizona Cardinals.
How exciting is that for your family now to have a pair of brothers in the NFL?
And it's a blessing to our family because it just shows you where we came from. Came from a hard working that family, and that's just how we are. We're hard working blue collar family, and I've seen my oldest brother Elijah come from the low, and then eventually made it to the NFL as an undrafted free agent. So I've seen him go through that process, and he came from where it was hard, where undrafted, but now he's on his third year, and I'm excited for him. And it's just a blessing because he's been mentoring me through this whole situation and just been there, and I just can't explain this. It's amazing.
Rashad, what do you do best as a running back?
I'm a very patient runner. I'm very elusive. I can catch the ball out of the backfield. I can do whatever it takes to help win a game, that's for sure. And that's the mindset I'm bringing to Seattle. I'm bringing that mindset that I'm gonna help win games, and that's the number one thing. And I just want to bring that team back to where it was a few years ago, make a huge playoff run, and eventually go to the Super Bowl. And that's the goal. And I'm just excited, and I thank everybody in that organization for trusting in me. And I know it's gonna be a great year for me.
Hey, Bud, is there an NFL running back you most identify with?
Excuse me, I can hear you.
Similarities to any other NFL running backs?
Not at all, but I always like watching film of all the other running backs because I'm big fans of them. But I never try to compare myself. I just try to go out there and play games. I mean, play my own game and try to mimic some of what they can do. But I really just watch a lot of film on them, and I'm a huge fan of all them guys. And I'm excited to join the elite group of 4 running backs.
Rashad, this is a team that had 1 rushing touchdown from a running back last season. It's been a pretty clear emphasis they want to fix the running game. To know that you're a part of that solution that they see, how big of a thing is that to you?
That definitely means that they need somebody in there to come in and willing to help, and I am the right guy for that. I'm excited. Like I know they needed help, and like I said, I'm the guy for it, and I'm just willing to do my job to wherever it takes to help win. And it's going to be an amazing process. I can't wait. I just can't wait. It's a great experience.
What part of the game do you think you have to work on most, Rashad?
Definitely, I got to work on my pass protection, but that's something I'm getting better at daily. I'm still working every day. But I know with the help of the running back coach of Seahawks and with a lot of great veteranship, I'm going to get better and just repetition it every day. It's just a lot of technique part, but I know I got to protect that $1 million man back there and Russell Wilson. And I'm excited to join him and just to be on his side and everybody else on that Seahawks organization. So it's going to be fun.
So you know Russell Wilson, anybody else familiar with Seattle's roster?
I'm not really, but I mean I play with him on Madden, so I know who they all are when I see them on Madden.
Rashad, did you follow the career of Marshawn Lynch when he was here?
Oh yeah, most definitely. He's a great running back. He brings the juice, the energy, as what my offensive coordinator, running back coach Cole Horton says. I'm excited to try to follow his footsteps and what he did in Seattle. He was amazing, and I just want to carry on that traditions of a good running back there. And again, I just want to help win games. I mean, I think that's why they picked me, and they know I have the ability to do that. So I'm happy to start from here.
Anything else, guys? All right, thank you. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, there you go. Rashad Penny speaking with the local media here. Very likable, Dave.
Yeah, he's supposedly a really humble guy and down to earth. And, you know, the one thing, he had the immediate answer. This is the case for every running back coming out of, especially if you're a really good one, coming out of college. The biggest thing you have to work on is pass protection, because if you're a good running back in college, you're catching the ball and you're running the ball. You're not used as a blocker. And so that's always a tough one for running backs when they come into the NFL. There's more assignment. You got to be on it. So, yeah, that'll be something he can work on, but low center of gravity. I love the pick. Now, whether or not it was the right running back, I like that they got a running back. To me, I wanted one last year too. They did get one in the 7th round, but you know, I just think it's a really good idea. I think it indicates that Pete wants to get back to old school football, play defense, run the ball.
Catch up a little bit as far as the draft. Jacksonville, as we mentioned before, took Tavon Bryant, the defensive tackle. Minnesota took cornerback Mike Hughes. The 3rd running back went, and that's New England taking Sonny Michael from Georgia. He now goes to New England. Last pick up, the Philadelphia Eagles.
So yeah, Sony Michel goes to the New England Patriots. The world champion Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock. We'll come back, tell you about what they've done with their pick as we continue with the Seahawks Draft Lounge. Live from the VMAC, Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, John Clayton, and Dave Wyman with you right here on 710 ESPN Seattle.
Hey, hey, C-Raj? Sorry. Okay, guys, we're coming back. We're probably going to call it at 9. We'll break at 45.
Welcome back, everybody. Seahawks Draft Lounge continues live from the VMAC. Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, Dave Wyman, John Clayton with you as the first round is wrapped up. Lamar Jackson going to the Baltimore Ravens. The Eagles traded out of that pick. And right before that, you had Sony Michel, one of the other running backs we had actually heard in all of these mock drafts being talked about going to the New England Patriots. What do you think of that, Danny?
About Sony Michel?
Yeah, about both of them, actually. I think they're both intriguing players.
Lamar Jackson as a first-round pick, I think is going to be a fascinating sort of process here. You're going to have a change in GM. This is Ozzie Newsome's last draft. But you've got questions about how much longer Flacco is going to stay there as an elite-level quarterback. It's not like they've tailed off, but they've kind of been in that same range here for a number of years. Sony Michel, I think, is interesting because New England's probably the team that best embodies this idea that running backs are largely interchangeable. Their willingness to bring in guys, to move out guys, to sign different players from teams, to bring in Danny Woodhead, all of the different things that they've done, they've treated running backs as largely cogs that you can swap in and swap out. So they pick Sony Michel there at the end of the first round to plug him in there. This is going to be an interesting step. This is, to me, as definitive a statement as the Seahawks made in 2011 when they declared, we're going to fix our offensive line by taking James Carpenter and then John Moffitt. And while that didn't pan out as well as Seattle had wanted, I think this is something similar about, hey, we've tried free agency with running back. We've tried to find a guy that'll fit and let him distinguish himself. We're now going to go take the best running back that we were in position to select. That's what Rashad Penny is. We'll see if he turns out to be a better player than Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, and some of the other running backs that were. But they took the number 2 running back off the board behind Saquon Barkley, who they were never going to sniff.
And, of course, that's the thing. And they didn't make a trade, and obviously there was trade possibilities there because, I mean, you just saw 32, Lamar Jackson going to Baltimore. So Baltimore, I'm sure, was probably making some kind of an offer because they wanted to get into the first round. Maybe it wasn't good enough, but I think that you can see the emphasis of trying to get the running game going. And again, this is the pick they made. This is the pick over Geis. This is the pick over Sony Michel. I mean, this is the one that they feel can work. I mean, again, the stats are, again, he was good at breaking tackles, getting runs after contact, also involved in the passing game, and, seems to be a good citizen, which, of course, I guess is one thing. But, we'll see how he compares to the other backs.
Seemed kind of humble in that. I like, and just saying, yeah, I was shocked there.
Yeah.
He said everybody in the 50 people that were with him were shocked too, right?
I can't wait to hear that phone call if they do release it. Because last year, who was it that cried when they called him? Maybe Tedrick Thompson? Yeah, somebody cried when they were talking to Pete and John. So it'll be interesting to hear that. But, yeah, kid does everything. So, and again, it's just so typical of the Seahawks that, that people are going to squawk about it, just like they did about Russell Wilson and Frank Clark and who else?
Carpenter.
Yeah, that one didn't work out. That's not the way I was going with it, Bob.
I'm just
going a different
I'm just
way.
thinking of the squawking
Bruce
that's gone on.
Bruce Irvin was another one. I felt like they right after them, it was the Jets that were going to pick, and the Jets were saying that they were going to take Bruce Irvin.
Yeah, Quentin Couples was the guy that they ended up choosing. The Jets would. And nobody would have made a peep if the Seahawks had chosen Quentin Couples.
Yeah.
Nobody would have because he was mentioned at that high. Let's be clear. When people react to drafts, what they're reacting to is the perception of where that player was supposed to be. And if you're a team like the Seahawks, and this has been true since John Schneider's been there, they cloak who they're interested in. And it's why their picks are always a surprise.
They prove it every year, don't they?
And it's, look, Tim Ruskell, when he was the GM here, did not cloak his interest in players. And it was why that I remember forecasting Lawrence Jackson was going to be their first-round pick. And I felt really, really smart once they picked him because I was like, that's right, I got some good sources. No, because it's kind of a defense mechanism. If you let people know who you're going to pick and then you pick that guy, everybody's like, they got exactly who they wanted. This is the player they were identified and keyed in on. And so it's a public relations strategy in some ways, whether or not it's intentional. Seahawks might not be right. It might not be a better pick than Darius Geis, and it might not be a better pick than Sony Michel.
Who would you have taken?
They have the courage, not a running back.
Well,
oh, jeez.
Of the running backs that were available.
This paid economic announcement is made by
Who would you have preferred?
I don't mind Penny. I would have taken somebody that was better in the passing game, though. Like, I would have taken somebody that was better and more easily able to segment in there. I don't think I would have taken Geis. I like Nick Chubb because I think he's a bruiser, but I think he's had a bad knee injury as well. So, but I think I would probably go if I was you're gonna make me take a running back. I think I would have gone.
But by the way, is your economics guy upset because his name is Penny, which is not the biggest value as far as a name?
Yeah,
Penny.
Yeah, that was true. Penny is a loafer. His coach never said.
Oh boy, here we go. They're going to compete with each other.
Why don't you two stop? Right. 50 Cent.
Fitty.
Yeah. This is going to be interesting.
But
to watch
also,
how
you
everybody
have to
reacts.
factor in one thing, and I'm sure that John and Pete will address this. When you don't have a pick in the second round, and now you have one pick in the third round.
By the way, do you expect them to make a move to get themselves into the second round?
Maybe. I think it's going to be tough, but again, it's like you have that void. It's like, okay, so now you have a choice. It's like you want a running back, and you look at that as a primary thing. This is the running back you may want, but also you realize, if you're now going to wait until your spot in the third round, what is it, like 76? Now that you're not going to get the back maybe you want. Or if it's going to be a pass rusher, whether it's Harold Landry. I mean, I think you have to factor in that void there from 27 to 76.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. What do you think these other running backs were thinking? I mean, besides Saquon Barkley, who's off the board,
thinking about Penny being picked ahead of them.
Yeah,
because probably like us going, huh?
Yeah, the year I was drafted, there was it was Shane Conlon, Cornelius Bennett. The guy that went first above everybody was a guy named Mike Junkin. Played at Duke. Nobody knew who he was. He's the number 4 pick.
He's related to Trey?
Guess who picked him?
The Browns?
Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I know that. He was terrible.
Yeah, he was. He washed out in 2 years.
Absolutely.
But that's not what's going to happen here.
No, and I think that what you're looking at is, again, his stats go good. Now again, it's San Diego State. It's not Alabama. It's not the SEC. But again, did accomplish things, and I thought the interesting part is his teammates and his coaches, really thought it was an omission that he didn't get more Heisman votes.
Yeah, that was an interesting note. You passed that along. Bruce Feldman, who was my old boss, my first boss at ESPN, he covers college football and does it, and he made that mention in that Rashad Penny, his only comment when people would ask him about it, hey man, you should be getting more public. It's like, no, the right person won it. That he is, and I think we got that sense from Pete and John earlier this week, that personality was going to matter more. Personality, that they were taking a look at the types, the types of the types of personalities that they were bringing in to meld in with this team.
You think they've reached a fatigue factor with sort of managing some of the more eccentric personalities, if you will, whether it's Marshawn, whether it's Michael Bennett, Richard Sherman? Do you think they've gotten to a point now where because he talked about, now we've narrowed the field. We're not considering everybody. I remember the one statement he made that always stuck with me is, we look at a player and see what he does well, not what he doesn't do well. And we focus on that one thing that he does well and how it can work for us. And now it sounds like they're kind of changing course a bit. Like, all right, instead of looking at these 300 players, we're looking at these 100.
There's certainly a lot of evidence that would point to exactly what you're saying, Bob, which is that Richard Sherman got cut, Michael Bennett got traded, that you've seen now Rashad Penny is and not Darius Geis is the selection, because I think in terms of physical measurables, you could make an argument that Geis was a more explosive player. I think that there's a fair amount of evidence that's there that might be something. And look, I think you can take an honest review of what the Seahawks have accomplished in the 8 years of Pete Carroll and John Schneider and said that, man, we got everything we could out of those players, and we had an unbelievable amount of success. Once we got there, it became pretty volatile, though. You've got Marshawn holding out. You've got Cam Chancellor holding out at one point. That there was some volatility, and maybe they are sort of recalibrating the type of personalities that they want with an eye toward more stability long term.
What did you think of what they said, John, where it sounds like they've sort of changed their approach? It's not all-inclusive. Now we've narrowed the field. Our board is, did you buy into that?
I bought into the change because, I mean, the one thing I know from sitting down with John Schneider as he was getting ready through this draft is that, he always reevaluates. The staff reevaluates, and they make changes because of that. And so I know one of the things that, he was stressing that they do now is that, and this goes back to the early days, they want to try to really get into the personality of the guy and see where they are as far as, even if they're a fifth-round pick, a guy that you didn't know if he's going to be a corner or a wide receiver, where are they mentally as far as, what's your belief? What do you think you can do? And again, you can hear a little bit of that when you're hearing Penny, because again, you can see he's humble, but he also thinks he's very good, and the players think he's very good. And so I think that what they've done is they've kind of reevaluated and say, okay, let's kind of go back and maybe we take some of the underdogs that really think they're really good and see if we can reconstruct this like we did in the initial phase of building this team. And so that's kind of the insight that I get from John Schneider, and I think I can hear it in Rashad Penny's voice.
There you go. That's John Clayton. He's here along with Danny O'Neill, Dave Wyman, and Bob Stelton. We're going to continue with the Seahawks Draft Lounge live from the VMAC coming up on 710 ESPN Seattle. First round is in the books. Seahawks actually made a pick in the first round. Everybody, welcome back. It is the Seahawks Draft Lounge live from the VMAC. Bob Stelton, Dave Wyman, Danny O'Neill, and John Clayton with you. The Seahawks went with a running back, Rashad Penny, out of San Diego State. We'll get into what that means to this team, get some thoughts from Danny O'Neill on that. In case you missed what was happening at the top of the draft, I guess a bit of a surprise with the number 1 overall pick becoming Baker Mayfield going to the Cleveland Browns, and then the quarterback started coming off the board. You had Saquon Barkley was sandwiched in between them. He goes number 2 to the New York Giants. But Sam Darnold was thought to be the number 1 overall pick. He ends up going number 3 to the New York Jets. And then the run on quarterbacks started after that. Josh Allen, the Bills trade up to get Josh Allen with the 7th overall pick. And then Josh Rosen, who looked to be a bit disappointed. He had a bit of a pouty face there in the room. He goes number 10.
By the way, he said he was peed off.
He looked it.
Yeah.
He didn't
Is
have
that
a
what
good
he
poker
said?
face.
A quote from him?
Yeah,
That was a quote. Yeah.
We're taking a look at him up on an interview screen.
You got
up on the
drafted,
podium now.
son.
He's
also, number 10.
He
should
also,
be thankful.
He also did say, though, that he wasn't going to come in there like an entitled jerk. He knew that he had to earn everything there in Arizona.
He
He
did
understood.
not.
You know, he did. Like, he
Really?
did. And I think he even used a little bit of colorful language about that. Like, it was a quote that was sent to me is that it might make you like him a little bit more.
I don't want to. I don't even want to hear it, Danny. Don't read it to me.
Just come from your economist, or
No, somebody different that was there. Our friend Ross.
Dave doesn't want to like
Just
him.
let me alone with my hatred.
Let him
for
fester in his hate.
Yes. No,
Well, he didn't look happy, and Lamar
He
Jackson
didn't.
was the last quarterback to go in the first round.
But
He
he's
goes-
also got the sad face going all the time anyway. But
Is he going to
we'll
be
see
the
how
new
he
Jay
works out.
Cutler?
Maybe he's got that same
Smoking
type of
Josh
thing.
Rosen?
Yeah, he's going to be there with Sam Bradford, who seems like a nice guy. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see what comes
Hey,
out of that.
by,
He
by
is
the,
a nice
by,
guy,
by the
Dave.
way, Bob,
I
did
know,
you get
you like him.
well? Danny's digging up that quote. Did you get the deal for what Lamar Jackson went for in that trade with Baltimore? All right, so again, Philadelphia, who didn't have a second-round pick, they get the second-round pick, number 52. They swap fourth-round picks, which is 125 and 132, and they get a second-round pick next year.
Wow.
So they got 2 seconds out of that with a swap of fours. Lamar Jackson going to Baltimore at the 32nd pick. And the interesting thing is, the thought out of Baltimore is this is probably Joe Flacco's last year because of the cap number and his salary. And so Lamar Jackson may be a starting quarterback in 2019 for Baltimore, Danny.
All right, here's the quote, Dave. We'll see if this makes you like Josh Rosen a little bit more. Quote, I'm not going to come in and be an orifice. He mentioned a specific, and think that my stuff doesn't stink. I understand the situation. I'm going to come in and I'm going to be respectful. That was when he was asked about playing behind Bradford and Glennon.
Should you have to say that? Should you have to spell that out? Okay, I'm just going to be skeptical of the kid until further notice. And you know what? I'll tell you what. When he wins me over, he's going to be like my favorite player of all time.
Yeah. What's he going to have to do to win you over?
It's not happening.
What would he have to do?
Well, I don't know.
Show toughness, get up from a bad hit, throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah, not complain, no facial expressions on the field.
If he has
no complaining, no whining.
a 4-pick game, and he comes back afterwards and he says, "I've got a lot to work on. This is on me, and I need to really take the steps that I need to improve."
Yeah, maybe something like that. So yeah, we'll see.
Dave doesn't want that to happen, though.
No, I'm just joking about that. But yeah, so far he's not impressed me. But like Rashad Penny. I mean, you look at the difference there, and again, I feel like why does he have to explain that? Well, it's because he's already exhibited behavior that makes everybody think that he is going to be those things that he just said he's not. So nobody else is saying that. Nobody else in the draft is saying those things. So
that they're upset, or
it's
that
odd. Yeah, it's very odd. So, but again, and I feel like he was kind of overcompensating there. But again, we'll give the kid a chance, right?
Yeah.
I think this again intriguing draft. So we still got Shaquem Griffin, who I think is really interesting. But Lamar Jackson. Baker Mayfield going number 1, and then at the very tail end of the first round, it's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And who do you think has a better career, Danny, at the end? 5 years from now, who's the better quarterback? Baker Mayfield or Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson.
Really? You say that with no doubt at all.
I don't believe Baker Mayfield's built for the NFL. Like, I just think the things that I've seen from his mentality and the desire for attention, I think that when you've got a guy that's that clued into what people are saying about him, he keeps a list of people that have said negative things about him. And
yeah, when Mark Schlereth got sideways with him, it's like, okay, because there was something on Twitter, and he said he hasn't squirted a drop of bleep in the NFL bucket. So that was weird. So you're right about that.
But he was peed off today, according to his quote.
Oh, that was Baker Mayfield?
You're right.
Oh, you're talking about Rosen.
Rosen,
So,
yeah.
So I'm with you. I think Lamar Jackson, the only thing is what is it going to take for him to, because people have been talking about, do they have to change their whole offense for Lamar Jackson? I don't know that he's that remedial of a quarterback that you have to change your whole offense for him. He can learn stuff, man. The guy's so exciting to watch, and he's going to go through a process that's going to be like every other quarterback that comes into the NFL. So I'm really excited for him. I'm rooting for that kid.
if he doesn't play this year, nobody's going to bat an eye about it because Joe Flacco's there. Baker Mayfield, from the moment he steps in there, even though Tyrod Taylor's the starter right now, it's going to constantly be a question about when is Baker Mayfield going to get a shot, because you're not going to say – guys don't sit – Carson Palmer didn't start a game his rookie year in Cincinnati. It was John Kitna. That doesn't happen anymore. Guys get rolled out there sooner and sooner now.
This is the exact scenario I thought it was going to be for Lamar Jackson, because I didn't think he was going to be the 15th pick of the Arizona Cardinals, but I thought he was going to be a pick in the low part of the first round. As it turns out, it was the last pick in the first round, but you could see the great value that Baltimore did in giving up 2 second-round picks to be able to move up to get him. And so what I thought was the key, and what I like is the fact that they won't have to play him this year. In fact, he won't play this year unless Joe Flacco gets hurt. Joe Flacco is going to be the quarterback of the team, but what you can see is there can be a transition. If he picks up things well, they can knock Flacco out this year, and then after this year, and then go to Lamar Jackson.
The more I think of the Rosen thing, were you going to follow up on that?
Well, I was just going to say, couldn't the same conceivably be true for Baker Mayfield if Tyrod Taylor plays
absolutely
decently? He sits.
It could be said of basically all quarterbacks, but maybe the exception of Josh Rosen, because, I mean, you've got A.J. McCarron there kind of holding it. And, again, most people think that Rosen is going to be the fastest of the quarterbacks to be on the field, with Mayfield being number 2. And so that's where I thought that both Buffalo and the Jets had gone with the idea that those were kind of the guys that they want. But, again, the surprise was Mayfield going to Cleveland.
All right, again, first round in the books. In case you're just joining us, the Seahawks go with a running back with the 27th overall pick, Rashad Penny, out of San Diego State. We're going to come back, talk more about what took place in this first round, look ahead a little bit as we continue live from the VMAC. It is the Seahawks Draft Lounge right here on 710 ESPN Seattle. Is Clayton? Where'd he go?
In the bathroom.
Oh. Welcome back. Welcome back into the Seahawks Draft Lounge. Live from the VMAC. Bob Stelton, Danny O'Neill, Dave Wyman with you. Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Turn it down. Turn down that damn music.
Could you hear me? I couldn't hear me.
Jeez.
Now I can.
We refer to that as Stelton levels.
Huh?
Because there are times when we come into the studio after Bob Grouse and Tom, and the music,
I don't know what you're talking about.
The music will be turned up to a deafening level.
That's because I love it.
It's because you can't hear.
I'm deep.
Yeah, I have like I'm actually I have ringing in my ears because of Bob's levels on his.
Listen, years of playing music over and over and over at loud volumes, it takes a toll. Plus, I listen to Graz every day. It's bellowing into my ears. It does nothing to help my hearing. So the first round is in the books. For those of you, again, just tuning in, if you missed it, the Seattle Seahawks go with a running back in the first round. They traded back out of 18. They traded back with the Green Bay Packers. They moved down to 27. They go with Rashad Penny, running back out of San Diego State. So the running game, a priority, and it made Dave Wyman very happy because we've had the debate which is more problematic for the lack of a running attack with this team, the offensive line or the running back. I think it's obviously both. I put more of it on the line personally.
Yeah. What was I up to, Danny? 70%, 75% running back?
It increased with each passing time when we talked about how bad the offensive line was. Dave would
well, it wasn't that. It was how bad the running game was.
Right.
Yeah.
And each time it would be, well, it's the offensive line because these guys don't have any holes. And each time Dave would crank it up. The one thing that probably gave you most pause, I know for me, was Alex Collins.
Right.
The fact that Collins never looked like he was headed towards success here. There was never any point where you're like, that guy's explosive, that guy's seeing holes, that guy's going to get it. You let him go, he goes to Baltimore and almost gained 1,000 yards on the ground this season.
You feel like that hurt your case a little?
Well, no, not really, just because Alex Collins was a totally different player there. So something happened there. And or something wasn't happening here, and something did happen there, and it was, coaching. I think is part of it. Who was his running back coach here?
Was it Sherman Smith?
Sherman Smith up until the end. Last year they changed it.
Was it Johnny Morton last year?
Yeah, I believe Johnny Morton was there.
Well, and maybe he got mixed messages, but you guys said it. There was never a point in those 2 preseason years that he spent here that showed any promise for Alex Collins. So
plus, he couldn't hang on to the ball, much less find the creases and the cracks.
Well, and the other thing
to
too,
run through, he was fumbling.
There was a lot of how many did he fumble? I don't.
Alex Collins definitely
for the amount of times he touched the ball
coming in. Yeah, and then you had Chris Carson who came in here last year, didn't fumble while he was at Oklahoma State. It was like 400 carries or something. So anyway, I really think that it's about the running back and his decisions, and so that's something I'm looking for, and I'm excited. I like drafting running backs. I think that the pendulum swings back and forth in the NFL. And 10 years ago, tight ends were like nobody wanted a tight end. They were spreading it out. They're wide receivers, and now all of a sudden tight ends are a hot commodity. I think running backs are going to make a comeback. And, in spite of your economist friend, Danny, I'm hoping that they're going to see more value there because, look, look what it means to this team when they could run the ball, and it was remarkable how good they were. They were in the top 5 for 4 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
They were. I remember in 2016, I think I counted 113 runs that went for 0 yards or negative yards, and it went downhill rapidly. So. To me, I think a lot of it has to do with the running back. I think it can get fixed actually fairly quickly. And if this guy just gets it right away, you got Solari coming in here. I think you're going to have more of a, the running game in Jacksonville is kind of old school. If you guys remember that game, it's like block down power, pull a guard around, come up with a fullback, seal it. It was like the old, Lombardi type of stuff. So hopefully we're going to get to hear from John and Pete about Rashad Penny here.
Yeah, are they going to be coming into the room? All right,
like
we'll send it up there in just a second. John, did you have something you wanted to throw in quickly?
Nope, I just want to hear what they say, but you can see commitment to the running game.
There you go. John Schneider is being joined by Pete Carroll. We'll send it up to the desk right now.
I don't mind telling you. This pick fires me up. I am jacked about this pick. John's going to tell you all about it, but let it be known. This is
Yeah, no, I mean,
exciting pick.
Yeah, we're super excited. We were able to move back. We feel really blessed. We were able to move back with Green Bay and Phil Avoid in the 6th round, Phil Avoid in the 3rd round. The 3rd round pick is number 76 overall. It's a really nice pick, in our opinion. We still have a gap tomorrow, but just really excited about Penny. Great kid, 2 brothers. Played behind Pumphrey last year, split time with them. Didn't complain about not getting carries, as many carries as he would have wanted. Dynamic kickoff returner. He's returned 7 career kickoffs, and he's had 2 punt returns. Took 1 to the house. Just incredible spatial awareness and instincts, and we're really excited. So
yeah, speed, durability. Humble. Probably the best part about this kid, this young man, he's humble. He's ready to work. He probably already told you guys. You probably have already heard from him. Whatever we want, he'll do. The special teams accent is so unique. I mean, he's really something to be able to help Tyler, take the burden off of Tyler at times. They'll compete, for all of the return stuff, which is great. He's coming in here to compete. He knows that. He didn't just hand him the job. He's got to come in here and battle, which he's ready to do. But he's such an exciting player, and he's so versatile and so dynamic. We know that every time he gets his hands on the ball, he can score a touchdown. And that's in the running game and the passing game, because he's very gifted catching the football and running routes as well. So we know that the running game helps every aspect of our team. It helps our defense, it helps our special teams, and he will also be able to play in teams and be a factor. So it's a really exciting pick, and can't wait to get him here and get going and fitting him in.
How concerning was it? Just 1 year of production, or was there a freshness component to it?
he's had a couple of years of production. We had
guy.
1,000 yards last year. Pretty good player.
As a main guy, I mean,
Not a question at all. He had some really interesting analytic stats about him with durability and run after contact, run after first contact. He actually of this group was number 1 in both categories.
Hasn't been overworked, part of it, but he still can carry the load. His running game, too, was very similar to things that we do. He's run some of the exact same plays. So we've seen him run behind the fullback. We've seen him run downhill and the perimeter stuff. Just everything just fit. It's just a beautiful pick. And there was another great runner in this draft. It's a fantastic draft for running backs. Johnny's been, showing us that all throughout. But I don't know anybody other than Saquon Barkley. He's an extraordinary player. And we haven't seen a guy like that in years. And this guy's right there in the ability to make the explosive plays and the big stuff happen. So it's really exciting. I think our fans will be pumped about this thing. Can't wait to see him in the kicking game, but from the line of scrimmage as well. He's going to really be a great threat. And we'll see how we fit him together. Help Chris. We'll help Russell. It'll help all our guys, and we'll fit it all together.
You guys have both mentioned the durability. Was that maybe a bigger deal given how things have gone in your backfield for the past few seasons?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It was an important element of his makeup and his back. Right.
What is it about Penny that made him stand out over those other backs you talked about that are all pretty good too?
It's a really good group. It really was.
It's a great group.
It was very hard to work through the process with these guys. There's going to be some really good backs that go tomorrow as well. But I think just the fact that the guys doesn't have quite as much wear and tear. Can score from anywhere on the field. Great hands. People were a little bit concerned about level of competition, but he went down to the Senior Bowl and absolutely ripped up the whole week down there. And those guys were they were competing their tails off down at the Senior Bowl, and he stepped right in there and acted like it wasn't that big a deal. I think when you get to know him, he's like this really easygoing, humble, kind of just really good person. He was raised real well, and then he gets on the field and he's got this swagger about him, and it's like he has several pupils. The guy's got amazing eyes.
He's got a 3-down back. For us, we can do everything. So he needs to work on his pass protection, which he was not asked to do a lot of. but he will give us the ability to play him on all downs, and that versatility is really special too.
Sorry.
Sure.
When you guys met him, was anything about his presence or his way of being that really stuck out with you when you first had the initial contact with him off the field, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, he's a real down to earth, real grounded kid. Like I said, he was never real outspoken about not getting as many touches behind, playing behind Pumphrey last year as he would have liked. But when he got his touches, it was like, when you're studying Pumphrey last year, it was like, holy smokes, who is this guy? Because he was just ripping off long runs as well. So, his demeanor is like this quiet, he's just kind of got that sparkle in his eye and like really wants it.
Pete, you've talked a couple times about getting the run game going, and obviously there's a lot of factors in that. But how big a difference can an explosive running back?
Yeah, this is really the addition, the element that we were hoping to factor into this season, along with, because we like our running backs. We've got a good young room of guys that are all going to be competing. But this just gives us one more chance to really make it an explosive aspect. He'll help us in the run game by being able to run the ball inside and outside. He's been a downhill runner, but he's also been able to bounce the ball on the perimeter and take great advantage of that. Whether he's cutting back or going front side, he's got a special way about him. So he has big playability, so that just makes such a difference when you're defending us. And so I think we'll figure out how it complements with the other fellas, but he's going to bring something really explosive that's going to be a great dynamic for our football team.
You mentioned the system they played in San Diego State. Plug and play is pretty simplistic, but is he kind of...
And the wing tee in high school.
Is he along the lines, though, of that kind of guy who will make the transition easier to the pro game?
Yeah, we have no question about that. We really, and the fact that he went to the Senior Bowl and did all this stuff there too, he learns really well. It makes sense to him. But he has truly run a lot of stuff that we want to run with him, and so that's great in the evaluation. He's also been a shotgun runner at times too. We've seen the moves and the cuts he needs to show us that stuff, which we like to do because it's a big way to include Russell's factor. No limitations. There's just no limitations. We can do.
He knows his game too. I mean, he's a kid that knows who he is and what his game is. He knows he has a lot of work to do in pass protection, and he's been adamant about that and knows that he's got to get to work on that.
In 27, you guys had a number of choices you could have made with good players. How did it come down to this running back at that spot?
Well, we would have taken him at 18, so that's why we feel super blessed. I mean, whenever you move back, people are always like, you just move back. I mean, it's a pretty hard thing to do, like you have to find a partner. We had several people from us, and we felt, like I said, we felt real blessed that Green Bay hung in there with us, and really a true rarity is that we had a team call us after we selected him to try to, acquire him, which is, I've never experienced that. So, yeah, we feel very blessed tonight.
Yeah, baby.
Just to clarify your last statement, so you had a team after you selected Penny called to try to trade for him?
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I know.
Which team?
It's amazing.
It's a really good job of picking that up, by the way.
You both have made mention to these character and humility attributes. Is that something that this year you guys have kind of reprioritized in any way in terms of really focusing on those elite character attributes?
I think this time of year we're always trying to stay close to the core of who we are. There's never been a year I've ever coached in football where that wasn't one of the most important elements of the players and the team that you have. So the opportunity to find a guy who has his world kind of squared away and knows kind of who he is and all that, I think it just gives us one more chance to be that much closer to exactly the way we'd like to be. And so I don't think any more than any other time. I know what you're getting at. I think it's just I mentioned it in one of the interviews we did earlier that we wanted to return to make sure we're at the core of who we are and what we want to be. And the running game is a lot about, you guys all know that, and this is really a connection in many ways that really fits the bill for us.
Seems like the way people view the importance of running backs has sort of evolved over the years. Like you used to get really high, and there was a period where you see them slide to the third and fourth round, and now they're popping up in the first round of games. Would you agree that it's evolved, and then why do you think that is?
It just fluctuates every year, really. There's certain trends that happen all the time. this year's group was unique because there's really good runners all the way through. So it's like these guys are, there's some pretty talented runners, but where do you start taking them? Because you could get some guys later. So I'm sure there's a number of teams that probably have these guys rated fairly highly, but we're like, you know what, we should go in direction A and then come back to B a little bit later on because we can still get a runner.
With Schottenheimer's offense and Solari's blocking scheme, did that kind of narrow your focus at all in terms of what running backs you guys liked?
I don't know if it narrowed our focus on. That's the right way to say it, but it's certainly, we're all on board in what we're trying to get done. And Shotty has a great background. He's done a lot of things, and he has the ability to structure stuff that's going to fit our style of guys. And it just so happens that how we would like to go, Rashad fits right into it. But I don't think it's anything special about that. But I do think that it is going to be a nice fit, and he's really excited about having a 3-down guy. It's some of the best guys in the league are guys that can play on first down, second down, third down, and you don't know where, you're not tipping your hand because you're bringing in only a third down guy and have a first and second down guy. So fortunately, Chris is in that same mold. He can play all 3 downs too, and we know that when we saw CJ healthy, he could also, and so it gives us a really good competitive room. I'm tickled about this, and just think it's going to be exciting for everybody, our coaches, our fans, and our in the locker room to see how we can mix this together and really make it a great aspect of our team.
John, how important was it to get some tomorrow or get some in the second and third rounds and kind of have that?
How important was it?
Yeah.
Extremely important. Yeah. I mean, you asked me about that the other day, and it wasn't accidental the way you asked it, right? It was direct, right? No, it was very important.
Were you John, do you view it as a priority to get something?
Yeah, right. Okay.
John, do you find it a priority to find a way to get a pick between 32 or 33 and 76 more?
Always. I mean, we're constantly working at it. I mean, we had a number of things going on right down here at the end, and we have an awesome staff in there. Everybody has their responsibilities. They have their teams, and we've been doing it together for several years. So people are, we can literally be like bang, 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 and go from this team to that team to that team. And the room is very well organized in terms of what our, we have several different boards. I'm very visual, so you can see what's going on over here, and then what's going on in different, with different teams over here. So, sorry.
Sure. The video of him when you guys called him is already kind of going viral because of his reaction. Could you sense that through the phone at all, you guys? Or
It sounded pretty emotional. I
haven't
seen the video.
Sound emotional.
Yeah, I haven't seen the video. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
They have some fun? Was the family all there and all?
He's kind of overcome, and there's like 50 people screaming.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
He's earned that. He deserves that.
What was the setup with
Sorry, man.
27? Could you guys?
I guess Art
about going
gets
back?
to go now. I guess it's your turn because you're the tallest guy in the room.
We are going by height, aren't we?
I guess so. Get over here!
Go ahead, take whatever way you want.
What's the chance that
You
you
didn't
guys
really
going
say
back?
that, did you? No. So what's right, John? You get to go wherever you want. You want to go over here? You get to do whatever you want.
Go ahead.
What was the question?
If I could finish it. The choice to go further back in the first round or into the second round, how close was that decision?
Well, we couldn't go into the second round because, my friend over here said we couldn't anymore, so we decided not to, just based on that solely.
Thanks for reading.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I go to the bathroom too.
That's way too much information.
But no. I mean, we definitely think about that stuff all the time. Like it's like you're moving through this thing constantly. Tony knows about this. Like you're trying to figure out like where. Yeah, there's round 1, 2, 3. There's just rounds, and they don't. Honestly, they're numbers all the way through. It's not. You don't really think about like we have to select this person in this round, and this round gets. This is the entertainment tonight, man. They had the red carpet out there for crying out loud. Like, this is all entertainment tonight. So, it's important for us all the time to be thinking about if we're going to go back and then move up, trying to acquire as many people because you're studying your board. Our board looks like a big map.
I'll say this, it was really active right around that pick. We had all kinds of stuff going on. We're not going to tell you what it was or who it was or any of that, but John was, like he said, his guys were working, and there were some options and choices, and we did what we needed to do. But that's kind of, when your pick comes up, that's what it is. There's phone calls and phones ringing and cards going and choices and all that. And John has done a fantastic job over the years. Like he said, his guys are so grooved at it. They're so tight and connected that they could handle it all. We exhausted every opportunity, which there was numerous opportunities, and did what we did, and are really fired up about all of it. Not just the player that we got, but that we did fill those spots, and then we're cranked up and ready to go for tomorrow. We're going to do everything we can tomorrow too. That's what we're saying.
Right.
Do everything we can tomorrow and compete at every single turn. It's just the way that we have structured our.
But it's a great question. I mean, when you have those gaps, it's hard. When we had the one, and then we didn't have those two. Those second and third. It's hard.
You made some pretty substantial changes to the coaching staff. Is there anything notable about how the coaching staff interacts with the scouting department in this process?
It's really, I'm glad to address it. When we started, we made the decision that we were not going to be the football guys and the personnel guys, that we were going to blend and make sure that there was dynamics within all of our guys so that we could best benefit from the strengths of everyone by having a connection and a rapport and a relationship that our guys just totally blend together. That's to maximize what everybody offers. And so that's what we've done from the start of this. I don't know how other people do it, but it was a beautiful illustration throughout the last closing this week out too, in the last few days. And there was rooms all over the building where guys were doing special projects, and it was coaches and personnel guys with the lights off and everybody working to try and figure stuff out. That's just been the mentality in our entire organization, but it isn't really illustrated any more clearly than it is in this regard. Everybody's in on it, and John, we respect everyone, we care for everybody's opinions, and then we figure it out, and away we go, and so. The analytics and the sports science guys that are involved even more than ever, all of that works together, and it's a real simple thought. We're competing, and the only way to compete is to use everybody's strengths, and then we got to figure it out when the time comes, and that's how we do it. And it's a beautiful synergy, and it's just, I think it's done really well and consistently, and it's what's given us a chance to continue to be successful. So it's a cool thing. It's fun as hell. We had a blast tonight. It was really cool.
John, you mentioned a couple teams. You had some teams walk away from you guys when you were back at 18. Is that unusual?
No, it's not. No, it's not. But you have to be really careful. You have to be very careful.
How confident were you could trade back in the job?
I wasn't. I was talking to Coach Holmgren about it this afternoon. He had stopped in to, wish us good luck and everything, and I was talking to him about like, well, everybody thinks you're gonna move back, and it's so easy, and no, and so it's not the, it's not, you have like the board has to start following a certain way, and then you have to have people that want to give up, that want to come with us. Where Green Bay came from was a long way, from 27 to 18. So, we weren't confident.
No, you don't know. You don't know until it happens, until the card is placed and called in and all that. You don't know till.
Yeah, we were ready. We were ready to pick at 18. If that.
Yeah,
we had to be. You got to be ready to
go.
Did you have offers at 27?
Yes.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Pete, you've talked about in the past about John's ability to kind of read the draft, where guys might go, the value, and all that. When you're moving back, how important is that of knowing, okay, we can go back this far?
It's that experience, that savvy is everything. Without John's ability to kind of sense how it's going to go and read the tea leaves and all that, we couldn't do that kind of stuff. He's got to have a feel for it, and I totally trust in his expertise in that regard. And we're looking at, come on, is this right or is it not?
Yeah, God helps those who can't help themselves. Okay.
I'm not sure that. Anyway, so it's it's really we're lucky that we got him. That was a compliment to you, John.
Thank you. No, that was very nice of you.
On that note.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you.
Man, anything else?
Oh, see, what's up?
Isn't that awesome?
So what was this? How much up there for?
All right, there you go. Pete Carroll, John Schneider, happy, fired up, giddy, I would say, Dave Wyman.
Yeah. You know, I was glad our 710sports.com Stacy Rost asked that follow-up question, because it almost slid by. It was like as soon as we drafted him, there was somebody on the phone trying to acquire him. Have you ever heard of that?
I mean, you've seen teams draft a player, and then you'll see a trade, and so such and such player has been traded to this team for a draft pick. But I don't know that I've.
Almost always in the NFL, the trade happens before.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've seen it before.
John,
They've selected a player and then
I
traded
just go
it.
by what John Schneider said. I mean, John Schneider, he's been involved in this half his life, roughly, in drafts and draft rooms and all these different things. He says that's the first time he's had that happen.
It happens in the NBA, but that has more to do with the dynamics of how that draft works.
Right.
I forgot that he did say that was the first time that's ever happened to him, because I was going to ask you if you ever remember that. That was really interesting. So at least one other team thought that he was really good. So yeah, very interesting, and just like hearing how many times did they talk about his off the field stuff. I mean, it was almost more about that in the very beginning.
Yeah,
they really emphasized the character and that kind of stuff, and it just. It's not like it's all about getting rid of Michael Bennett and Richard Sherman. It's about you're starting to see where they're trying to go as far as their team, how it's constructed, and what their locker room is like.
The read I have, and this is going back to spending some time with John as he's preparing for the draft, is that part of the things that I think they learned from this is, okay, let's go back to some of the original things that we did. You take underdogs. I mean, you take the 5th round, 4th round picks and all that stuff, but you test out their mentality. You test out their character. I mean, Richard Sherman's character was great. He had a chip on his shoulder. And I think what you can see with Penny is that, okay, he's a quiet guy. He's a confident guy. He really believes in himself. He's in a football family with players in the NFL, and he kind of knows himself. That's the one thing that John and Pete brought out. And so knowing that, because I know the questions that John asked and has the scouts ask is like, okay, how good do you think you are? Do you think you're a Hall of Famer? Do you think you're this? And they judge now what is their thought process and where they are. And I think that he hit all boxes in the sense that he knows he's good. He's just not going to say he's great.
I think when you see they had their choice of running backs past Saquon Barkley. They had their choice of running backs, and this is the guy that they pegged. This is the guy that they believe fits their system, fits what they want to do, and embodies the toughness that Pete wants as a baseline for his offense. I think that you're going to see a lot more use of a fullback as they bring back, and what Brian Schottenheimer, you heard them mention the diversity of things he's able to do. He's able to run out of a shotgun. He's able to run with a fullback. He's able to run with a single back. They talk about him as a 3-down player. They believe that this guy is going to be the workhorse-type running back that Marshawn Lynch was.
I was going to ask you about the fullback, because we keep referencing when Marshawn was here and it was the glory days of the running game. We had Michael Robinson here. And I don't know how much of a part he played in the overall success, but he was a very consistent part of that running game. And you had Will Tukuafu there for a little bit. They've gone away from that. How much do you put on the absence of a fullback in terms of the running game? In addition, I mean, I know it's not the singular problem. You've had line problems, you have running back problems, but the lack of a productive fullback, not dominant but productive. That's what Michael Robinson was.
There was some discussion, even when Robinson was here, about Seattle being more effective without a fullback. That there was some talk about some of the statistics that were there, but it's been a market change. They have not had a full-time fullback or somebody that's been a consistent type player like that since he's been here.
Yeah, I like the idea of a fullback, and referenced this earlier, the Jacksonville running game, what we saw out of them, which they had a great running game. They number 1 this year, number 2, so they were right up there. I think Philly was up there as well. You see the value of a running game, but they had a fullback, that Bohannon guy, and he was the one that gave KJ the concussion. But they would just line up in 2 tight ends, eye backs with a fullback and the tailback behind him. And if the running back is good at it, he'll be able to read off of the fullback's blocks, and it just gives you like an offensive guard who's more athletic and in the backfield. And I really like that, and I'm curious to see if we're going to get that kind of old school type of stuff from Solari. Maybe they do find a fullback. Who do they have on their roster right now that was
Trey Madden?
Trey Madden's still there. They have Fowler, who came over from Tennessee. But don't forget, their second highest paid free agent acquisition was Ed Dixon.
Yeah.
They considered
That's
the
a
best,
great point,
the
John.
best
Yep.
blocking tight end free agency, and a
Yeah.
guy who, if necessary, can slide over and do a little bit of fullback.
Yeah, he's lined up all over the place.
Right.
And, they even split him out wide. But great point. Ed Dixon, really good, very versatile, and he's a fantastic blocker. It's almost fun to watch him block, 'cause that's not usually a very exciting play. But so, yeah, they can do that kind of thing. And like I said, just more like man type of blocking, blocking down the nose guard or the three technique, pulling the opposite guard, leading up in the hole with a with a fullback. I mean, it's just, and this guy, he's got everything that you need in a back. A guy, he's going to have to learn how to do the pass pro part of it, because we talked about that earlier. When you're in college, it's not as sophisticated, and also if you're a good running back, you're usually touching the ball, you're not blocking.
Well, turned into what appears to be a good night for the Seahawks. They make a pick in the first round. They move down to the 27th overall pick and come away with a running back that Pete Carroll is fired up about. He's excited. He's giddy, I would say, with Rashad Penny out of San Diego State. We'll see if they're able to find their way into the second round. We know they've got some third-round work to do, so we'll see what they do in the second round. But that wraps it up for tonight. Thanks to John Clayton and Danny O'Neill, Dave Wyman, of course, Jessamine McIntyre, and Taylor Jacobs. That does it, guys.
Thank you, Bob.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you, Bob.
That was fun.
Yeah,
that was
you're
fun.
a fantastic point guard.
You guys should come back on one of these other nights, and I'll listen. I think, Danny, you'll do that. Dave, you're going to do that, aren't you?
Do what?
You're going to be back?
There was one? What?
There was one. Dave's getting loopy.
Come on, man. It's 9:30. It's past my bedtime.
Bob, you're not going to be doing the Saturday marathon with us?
No, I'll be listening to you and Graz and Jim Dazzle, everybody.
Danny?
Are you on Saturday as well? Danny, you're going to have to keep everybody in line. I think that's going to be his
It's going
job.
to be John's job.
John's going to be breaking news. John, see, you're going to have to babysit the elderly there. I'm talking about the two other guys.
Why do you say that about Jim?
It's true.
It's true.
Outside of that, yeah.
Go Cougs.
There you go. On that note, thanks to all of you for listening tonight, and make sure you tune in tomorrow, 4 o'clock? 4 o'clock Pacific time for the resumption of the 2018 NFL Draft. It'll take place live right here from the VMAC. It is the Seahawks Draft Lounge on 710 ESPN.